Are we back? I think we should be back. Okay, the technical difficulties continue here. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the content of the stream. Alright. Can everybody hear me now? Let me know in the chat. Man, maybe I should not have done the occult NASA patches episode, huh? Would have a lot less glitches. Okay, so we're back. I'm, of course, your host, Bruce McGuire. You're listening to Mindshock. This is Breaking Down the Matrix, the Greatest Modern Wisdom, Part 2, where the one and only Andrew Tate and Owen Cook, some kind of pickup artist turned life coach, are breaking down the Matrix in a manner that might elevate them to the equivalent of a modern-day Socrates. That's what we are discussing and going over tonight. Mind-shocking stuff, very eloquent and profound testimony from Tate and Cook. If you want to help support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it's quickly going extinct, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case, topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. Or if you are with us live, just drop them in the live chat. I'll try to get to all of them. You can also support us by becoming a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Once again, just check the links in the description. So, IB McFly in the chat, Heracles in the chat, 83 Devil Dog in the chat. Justice Wants, can you hear? Are you saying no, I can hear, or now I can hear? On my end, it's showing that the sound is coming through now. It wasn't before, but we should be good now. Welcome, Saddle Bum, as well. Schmuck is in here, Southern Bread, and Sue as well. Okay, Justice can hear as well. So, let's pick up right where we left off.
If everything's taken away and you're in the wilderness, this is how I think.
Yeah.
My husband and me are surviving.
Yep.
We are surviving in the wilderness,
Yep.
and you're not, because you are now married to a straight homosexual.
Yep.
You know,
No.
who he's straight, but he's also a homosexual.
Oh, you nailed it. They're all gay. Everyone's gay.
Yeah.
You literally nailed it. I had this conversation with someone the other day. I was talking to some guy, and I was saying that I don't trust a female pilot. And he said, why? I said, it's not because I'm a misogynist. It's because I think men are calmer under pressure.
Yes.
Men are calmer under pressure. And he goes, why do you think that? It's like, why are you pretending you're confused as to why I think that? Haven't you gone through life and ever just seen a high pressure environment? Or is it just me when I've been in high pressure environments and I see women, they're not built for it. They're not supposed
Unless
to be.
it's kids, then it's the exact flip.
Yeah, well, then
Like,
they're
if
ready to
something
kill.
happens with the kids, yes.
Yeah,
and then
right.
suddenly, like, I'm like, George is just like, I don't know, he's crying. I can't focus. I'm like, what do you mean he's crying? Like, that's like,
Yeah,
I can do 20 things at once with children.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, biology is real. Like, we have these natural proclivities and they're real.
100%. Absolutely true. And you're right. And there's men, I find it extremely weird that you see these men who are begging for a female president. I mean, it just feels gay.
It's gay.
It's gay.
It's very gay.
I want a woman to be my boss. Like, it's just gay. It's just gay. I don't know what else to say. It's so weird, these people. And you're right. They often say, oh, Andrew, you're not masculine because, you know, you're insecure. And I say, well, why am I insecure? Well, why do you have all those cars? Because I'm rich. Yeah, but why do you need to show off all those cars? It's kind of interesting. Like, the modern world was built by men trying to prove their capabilities and prove they could do things. That's what the whole world is. That's all it's ever been. We've now come along with this whole globo homo bullshit trying to get.
Globo homo. Is that a new slur for anti-flat earthers? Globo homos. Okay, I want everybody to keep in mind what Andrew Tate is talking about here, because once we get into the Owen Cook clip, he's actually going to explain the mental mechanism behind these people either being confused or pretending to be confused on why someone wouldn't want a female pilot in an emergency situation. Now, again, we're not talking about outliers. Obviously, there are some very capable females out there. But it's so weird, like the Dunning-Kruger crowd, all of these clueless goofs will try to pretend that every female is like the female outliner. I mean, that's as dumb as pretending every male is like the male outliner in a particular outlier in a particular field. It's just, it's so weird, the total illogicality that's taking place here. The appeal to extremes, logical fallacies, the hasty generalization, logical fallacy stacks here. And like I said, Owen Cook is actually going to break this down better than I've heard anybody break it down. But first, we're going to finish with Andrew Tate's Socrates-level wisdom on examining the modern world.
Convince you that a real man is so secure in himself he lets his wife get
Yeah.
Okay, great, that's a real man. But truthfully, the real men were, I'm going to go over and try and cross Antarctica by foot because no one's done it. Well, that doesn't make sense. You'll freeze to death. Maybe, but I might do it. Right? So why do men, why are we in skyscrapers? Why have we gone to Mars? Why do men buy expensive things? Why do we do hard things? That's what masculinity's always been. That's how the world was built. But now they're going to come along and say, no, that's not masculinity. Masculinity is not trying to be the best version of yourself and proving to the world that you can do what others can't do. The reason I bought 65 cars is I can put them in a row and it looks funny.
Yeah.
Haha, look, I can. Peacock, look what I can do. Ha.
Justice wants in the chat saying, my opinion, he's working on an agenda to make women and men separated, break down family relationships, no more children. Wait, Andrew Tate's working on that? Andrew Tate is advocating the opposite of that. The powers that be, the string pullers, that's what they're advocating for. He's advocating for traditionalism and a return to the family unit. To a return to the nuclear family. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, he's very clearly speaking on that. And he's pointing out the goofery, he's pointing out the agenda that's been taking place to destabilize and destroy families. I mean, that's pretty clear, isn't it, Justice Once?
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to go any deeper than that. I don't have to drive them. I can't even name most of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've now convinced you that true masculinity is being so sure within yourself that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Well, if you don't have to prove anything to anybody, then you don't have any capability. So you're actually a useless idiot. And if you're going to sit there and be so arrogant that you believe you have no duty to the society or to your woman or to your ancestors, and you can just be secure in yourself, and I don't need to prove myself to nobody, and I'm just secure in myself. Well, you're one of the sheep being led to the slaughter because you have absolutely no capabilities whatsoever. They'll say a real man, I got in arguments on podcasts all the time. They say a real man's secure and lets his girl have male friends. I'm like, there's a male friend line. Sure, there's a line. Hi, how are you? Boom, boom. If my girl's going out on dates with some dude, like, this is clown world.
No.
It's peak clown world. And there are men who buy into this psyop. And it's kind of interesting when, because one of the most common questions I get asked is, Andrew, why do you still talk? Why don't you just shut up and disappear? And it's like, well, you have two choices. You either fight against this programming that's out there, or I guess to a degree you accept it, and then you have a new internal fight because your house is a mess, because your woman doesn't respect you, and you're depressed and sad, and you have some mental condition. You've decided you have OCD or ADHD or some garbage you saw on the TV once. And you either fight an internal war or you fight a war against the external, because this is really crazy what they're trying to implement. And I like the question you asked, like, what is a man? Truthfully, a man, I believe, is being able to do the things that are hard or do things you don't want to do because you're supposed to do them.
What's also really crazy, I mean, what he's saying was common sense not even 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, this is common sense. You do what needs to be done even if you don't want to do it. But the participation trophy generation has caused a lot of issues. Justice wants in the chat saying, I don't believe what he's for, in my opinion. Okay, we're not talking about hallucinating to know what his motivations truly are. We're just dissecting the words on the merit of their own argument. The merit of his argument. It doesn't matter who's making it. That would be a genetic logical fallacy, Justice wants. I mean, this is Logic 101. He might be a shill, whatever. We're just dissecting his words. What are his arguments? I mean, he's spitting Socrates-level wisdom here on his observations of society. Now, whether he was fed this as a script or not, for whatever means, that's not the subject here. I mean, I could do another podcast on Andrew Tate, is he an agent or whatever. Here, we're talking about the wisdom coming out of his mouth, not why it's coming out of his mouth or what his true beliefs are. That's not the subject here. And how could he tell people what they want to hear? That would mean people know what they want to hear. Like, an average clueless goof, they don't know all these things, so they don't know that's what they would have wanted to hear. You'd have to know what you want to hear in order to hear it. When he's talking to a lot of these ignorant masses, they don't know what they want to hear, but you can recognize when he points out the truth, kind of like Alex Jones. Now, shill or not, Jones has accurately pointed out many things. But he's making some profound observations about modern society and statism. If you haven't checked out part 1, he exposes the religious cult of statism very succinctly and impressively.
I think that's what a man's always been. A man is supposed to be strong. He needs to be strong, so he has to become strong. That's his job. A man is supposed to be brave. It's not that you can't feel fear. It's that you have to be brave. Oh, an attacker's here. I'm afraid, but I'm a man, so I will go and engage the attacker. It is my job. And now we're teaching men, you don't have to do what you don't feel like doing. You can do what you do feel like doing. And they somehow think that this is dismantling toxic masculinity, when in fact it's actually doing the opposite, because men are born with an innate propensity for violence. And then you have men who rape and kill and murder and school shooters. When you tell men to act out their feelings, you have some little idiot who's been on drugs his whole life for some imaginary mental condition. This is why you get school shooters in the first place. He should be being taught stoicism, not this garbage. So, yeah, no one can even answer what a man is.
They need to be aggressive. I see this. I now have 2 sons. My son, he wants to go to war. He wants to be a Spartan. He wants us to send him into the wilderness, and he's going to come back in 2 weeks, like the beginning of the movie 300, and see if he survives. I'm like, okay, this is innate. He wakes up, he grabs a sword. Him and my husband just instantly go at it, know? And I'm like, dude, please just come to me if you want to hug. Like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to say to you, I don't want to wake up and grab swords and fight you. Come to mommy when you need love. And when he's sick, he comes to mommy. But when he's feeling good, he wants nothing to do with mommy. He wants to go fight. He wakes up and he goes, where's my father? And he's holding a sword. you know, and I'm just like, think he's in there, right? You know what I mean? And that's beautiful. And people want to suppress that, you know, and you.
Well, they fear it.
They fear it, yes, and they want to suppress that aggression, that natural aggression. I'm like, no, like, you know, you want to curate that in a way that, yes, if something happens to this family, I want to make sure that everyone can defend this family in the right way. My job is to take care of the children. Like it is my husband's job to be able to go out and hunt and shoot and fish and do all the things that he does with, you know, with his guy friends when they go on these trips and go hunting. Like they need to be able to survive in the wilderness. And now we've created these straight homos who are like, well, I read the New York Times every day. And I'm so I'm quite educated on this topic of vaccines, so I can keep my family safe from the invisible virus.
Well, this is the thing where everything comes back to the propensity for violence, right? So you sit and you talk to these people these straight homos who say, I read the New York Times every day. And I sit there and I look at them and I just think, if I grabbed you by your neck, you know, I say it in my videos, I grab you by your throat. I say it, but I mean it. Yeah. I mean it. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is violence. The bottom line is how capable you are defending yourself and the people you care about. That's the bottom line of masculinity. What's crazy is in the West especially is we're importing all these people who understand this, right? We're importing a whole bunch of people who grew up in a very violent world, and they understand that violence is a solution to problems sometimes. And they understand they may get caught, but they might not, right? And we're raising a native population of men who believe violence is never the answer and that violence doesn't exist. They're pacifists. They don't believe in violence. Oh, you don't believe in violence. So if I break into your house, you don't believe in violence? Or you do believe in violence, you just want the police to be violent for you because you're a So you believe in it just the same because you'll call the cops. If you'd ever call the cops, you believe in violence.
Again, just the succinct nature in which he's breaking down statist cultists. I mean, this is quite profound. Justice wants in the chat saying, we all know what he's saying. We've known most all along. What do you mean by we? I mean, maybe amongst the hardcore conspiracy theorists, sure. But he's in the mainstream speaking to everybody, including the coincidence theorists, the NPCs, the normie statist goofs who don't know any of this. And that's why they're so triggered and trying to silence him. And that's the point here. It's not even what he's saying. It's in the way he's able to break it down is what impressed me here. Again, if you haven't seen part 1, make sure you check out part 1. Because I go over all of this in part 1, but he's never truly impressed me in an interview before this one. Same thing with Owen Cook. I've never really been that impressed. I haven't. But in these two videos that I'm going to bring up, they break down the Matrix possibly better than anybody else ever has.
Because you just want to do it by proxy. So everyone believes in violence. They just want to be detached from it. We want to pretend we live in a world where violence isn't real. Violence is the underpinning of absolutely everything. And I don't think many people also understand that large wars often bring a period of peace. Most people seem to understand that. You have World War II, and then there's peace that comes afterwards, although that's arguable because the American military-industrial complex has been at war ever since World War II. Nobody talks about they had World War II, and everyone talks about that one. Then there's the forgotten war in Korea. Then you got Vietnam, and then you got the first Gulf War. They never stopped going to war. They've been at war permanently the whole time, which is why they had to de-link the dollar from gold, because everyone worked out they were printing too many dollars, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, we might as well call this interview the statist expose. I mean, he's just blowing the whistle on all of these genocidal maniacs preceding Trump and the never-ending wars. I mean, the amount of bombshells here that he's dropping so casually is astounding. Violence is the underpinning of everything. And then you have all these cowardly bootleggers. They want everybody to pay taxes, which can only be enforced by violence. So pretty much every single individual that's pro-statism, that's pro-bootlicker, pro-hallucinated authority, all of these individuals are pro-violence, because under the threat of violence, they want to do universal basic income. They want to do free school lunches. These are all pro-violence individuals.
But large periods of peace also bring war. It's cyclical. If you have a large war that brings about the population's desire for peace, well, the reason there's a big desire for peace is because the materials have been depleted and the manpower has been depleted and the people are tired, of course. But then if you have a long period of peace, you start to replenish your manpower and you start to replenish your materials, and then the other countries around you start to do the same thing. So you try to implement trade deals or some kind of black ops, or you try and sabotage XYZ so your country does better to make sure that you maintain hegemony over that scenario. And over time, if it's too peaceful, it's like a pressure cooker. It's going to blow up. We have men now living in these peaceful, even though I wouldn't even call them peaceful anymore, times thinking that war isn't coming, or that there's not going to be some degree of, there's going to be a day where you're going to have to wake up and go, uh-oh, today's the day, right? And even if it's not physical, it certainly is spiritual what we're doing now. It's certainly already D-Day spiritually. When I saw here in Romania, the most Christian nation in Europe, the most Christian nation in the world, that the government, because they're an America cuck effectively, wouldn't give protest permits to Christians after what France did. They wouldn't give the permits for some reason, or they delayed it. They said, yeah, it'd take a few months. No one will care in a few months. They know that. I had to go stand out there, right? I was amazed there weren't more people out there. But this is now, we're already at D-Day, where you have to be prepared to sacrifice yourself, at least spiritually, at least for what you believe. And I guess the alternative is just to go to bed at night and feel like a coward. I don't know. Maybe for some men, that's better, to just look in the mirror and know they were a but at least I'm not in jail. I would be sleeping perfectly fine in jail right now, because I know I went for the right reason. I'd be sleeping fine, right? So it's truly incredible. You're right. These straight gay men who have this very strange view on the world, where they've tried to redefine masculinity and take it away from what it truly is, because truly masculinity is the ability to say no. And if you're going to say no, you have to defend your ability to say no. That's it. You can't say no if you don't defend it, right? No, you can't come here. Well, we're coming anyway. Now let's fight, right? It's kind of interesting. I've seen some things on the internet where they say, do men really look at each other and think about fighting each other all the time? No, not really, no. But if I walk in a room and there's 7 or 8 men my size, it does cross my mind. Like, do I know who they are?
Right.
It's just like, because we live in that world, right? But all these men who can't defend the ability to say no now find themselves in this weird quagmire where they're like, well, I can't really say no to anything because I can't defend it. So I'm going to have to say yes to everything like a but I need to find a way to look like I'm somehow important and masculine. So let me put a feather in my earring, and read the New York Times.
And half of these people I can beat up, which is the problem. But this is a true story. You're going to love this. It actually made me think about just exactly what you're talking about when we talk about these straight homos. I was at a restaurant the other day with children. Okay? I'm sitting with children having pizza. Another gay Zionist, like, out of nowhere, he pretends to be a fan, and then gets in my face with the camera and starts calling me an anti-Semite. If you want to see me, I have pledged on the show, the only time I will ever get arrested is if you come up to me when I'm with kids. Yep. That is Mama Bear. That is like Mama Bear takes out the Papa Bear when you're with kids.
100%.
And so once I got someone to just like move the children, I went up to, he's with his wife. Okay, his wife allowed him to do this. If my husband ever went up to a wife and a woman and children, and he thought he's 6'3", gets in my face. Yeah. I got so close. I think he started realizing like I was going to fight him. Like I was literally just like, do you understand? Like I was so close to his face. I was like, you are a coward. Yeah. You are pathetic. I was like, I looked at his sons. I said, you should be ashamed of this. This is the opposite of what a man is. Yeah. His job, his instinct should be when he sees a woman and children to protect it.
100%.
I go, your father reads the New York Times, thinks everything of the New York Times tells him is real, and he suddenly got like, very kind of intimidated. I said, post the picture. Yeah. Post the video that you shot of me, because I'm going to make you as famous as you want to be. Yeah. Still has not been posted. Yeah. Please, if you are watching, post it. Like this straight homo needs to become famous. And I said to his wife, you should be ashamed. You think this is a man to come up to children and a woman because you read something in the New York Times that told you Candace was an anti-Semite because she doesn't support Bibi Netanyahu blowing children to smithereens. Like that is your worldview now, that this means I hate all Jews. Like it's such a nonsense. But this is the average man now, where I was like, he needs to understand. Like this man needs to have his ass beat. And I say that in the most honest sense. Like you should be required as a man to be in a a fight.
Yeah.
Like, because it changes something within you.
100%.
Because you think you're fighting a tough battle because you're walking up to a woman and children to talk about BB
To defend the New York Times?
Yeah. You're just like, you're a straight homo.
Bro, yeah, 100% straight homo. It's clown world. You know, it's funny. This reminds me of a story. I haven't told this story.
But he would have never done that if it was you sitting with your daughter.
Never.
So, interesting story there, and I want everybody, again, just keep this in mind. This kind of psychology, this compulsion to defend corrupt institutions like the New York Times, shilling for the state. Like, where does this compulsion come from for these peasants to defend their slave masters, those who oppress them, those who rob them? I mean, how much money has been looted in the name of taxes from each and every United States citizen over the course of their entire lifetime? I mean, they're robbed to the point of destroying their quality of life, and they'll still stand up for those robbing them. I mean, we're talking about mentally gone individuals here. You can call, Candace is calling them straight homos. These people are zombies that are mentally gone, and Owen Cook is actually going to perfectly explain the mechanisms behind that after this interview.
Never in a million years.
Because he would have realized right then, we're fighting right now.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You know, it's interesting. I have, for the most hated man in the world, I have truly in life never had, up until this story I'm about to tell, a negative interaction with anybody. Everybody comes up to me and they're a fan. Or if anyone dislikes me, they don't really say anything. I've never had a negative interaction with anybody until about 3 weeks ago. It was during the World Cup and there was an England game. We were watching it here in Bucharest in like a public area. And there was some American girl. And I went toilet. And on the way out the toilet, she filmed me on TikTok and said, "Human trafficker," on TikTok. And I stopped and I turned around and I saw her and she kind of put her phone away. And I was like, "Did you say that?" She goes, "No." It's like, "You just filmed me and said I'm a human trafficker." She goes, "No." It's like, okay. So anyway, I went right up to her, walked up to her and said, "If you think I'm a human trafficker, you're allowed to say it. You're a girl. I'm not going to hit you. But if you think I'm a human trafficker, you're allowed to say it. I'm just saying, why would you film it and then deny saying it? You don't know my story. I'm happy to tell you if you care. I don't know your story. Why did you film that? Why did you say that?" And she's sitting there with her man, and the man goes, "Oh, I don't think this is necessary." I said, "My friend, you're a man. I will kill you." And I turned back to his girl, and he just sat there and never said another word. He just sat there while I berated his woman. Yeah. Then I went back downstairs. I saw them arguing, and then they left, right? So I guess she got in an argument with her man for not defending her, but the man understood. I can't fight. What can I do?
Yeah, what are you doing?
What do you do? Yeah, that's right. Another straight homo and some silly woman. But it was interesting dynamic. But when you say you want a man who will defend you completely,
AJD in the chat saying, "Eventually you just have to accept the fact that most people are just plain stupid and prefer to have their opinions served up to them by other idiots." Not so fast, AJD. Because after this interview, I'm going to go over an Owen Cook clip where he describes the mechanism by which the Matrix, so to speak, controls all of these individuals that are, as you said, just plain stupid and prefer to have their opinions served up to them by other idiots. But why? And Owen Cook is going to give possibly the best explanation I have ever heard after we get done with Andrew Tate here. I think Justice Wants in the chat is kind of triggered about Tate. I mean, right now we're not discussing whether he's a shill or not. We're simply addressing how eloquent his delivery here is in exposing the state, because Tate has said similar things in bits and pieces before, but in this interview as a whole, he's probably dropping more wisdom than just about anybody ever has in the modern era.
right? Even her, as stupid as she is, and even her loser man, she expected, it's like your expectation you have, and then the card got pulled, and I guess he changed his mind.
Right, exactly. And he probably wasn't happy that she did it. You know?
Of course,
like,
of course. It could, well, that's it, right? Because he's like, now why have you put me in a position where I have to die over your stupid TikTok? Yeah. Completely right. But these straight homos, it's very interesting. I love the point you just made about how he feels like he's defending society. Would Israel give a shit about him?
Mm-mm.
It's really incredible. It's really incredible how people will get pulled into psyops of things that don't even matter, right? There are so many things in the world that matter today. If anxiousness was a disease, or if you could feel like if panic attacks were real, which I don't believe they are, sometimes after a day of work, I feel like this world is a mess. Sometimes after a day of scrolling Twitter and seeing everything happening, you're a bit like uneasy. You're like, how do I sleep now? What am I supposed to do? How do I prepare for these things? And I guess I'm one of the most equipped people on the planet because I'm fortunate enough to have a bunch of passports and a bunch of money. Most people don't even have that. And it's really crazy that with all of this going on, all the things people should have a vested interest in, they can get psyoped and distracted into some complete bullshit, you know? Like LGBT rights. Cool. They already have rights. Why would you go march for what? How much further are we going to push this buck down the road? What's next? Well, we know what next is. It's children.
Pedophilia.
Yeah, of course. And they need children because they can't reproduce on their own, and they need your kids. They need your kids. So the plan from the beginning has been go after the straight people's kids so they have a future, right? Funny how they understand population dynamics and reproduction, more than the straight women seem to anymore. But there are straight people who will sit there and go, yeah, I believe we should support their rights. Like, what planet are you? They're just scared to say no because they're scared to have to defend their position. And that study you mentioned that explains so much of the world. It's crazy.
All right, guys, I'm interrupting again. Don't kill me, but come on, we got to talk about skincare. You guys know the brand that I love. They also support this show. Sign up right now at NimiSkincare.com for a subscription to save 15% on
people create that dynamic when they're like, well, this is what it actually is. Every person that they present being a truer example of masculinity. I encourage and I push back on that, which is just like, if this was a time of war, who would you want? Like the natural order of things is like men need to be masculine.
Or if they call the cops, right? When you call the cops, what kind of man do you want?
Right.
Do you want a man who turns up, who's big and burly, who's going to take action and tackle someone to the ground and make affirmative decisions? Or do you want someone who's going to sit there and philosophize over, oh, maybe he's not even a criminal. Maybe. What is a man? Like when shit's the fan, feminism disappears instantly. It always does, right? So all of it is just built inside of the society. A lot of it is men's fault also. You talk about how women are attacked with this feminism garbage from a young age, and you're completely true. It's completely true, and you're right. I was watching a Taylor Swift concert, and she has this famous line in one of her songs. I don't know her songs. I'm not a Swiftie, unfortunately.
Me neither.
But she says something.
Guys,
I have no eggs left. No. The patriarchy, she says. And all these little girls are sitting there going, the patriarchy. And I'm like, I blame the fathers because the patriarchy built that stadium. And the patriarchy put that soundstage together. And the patriarchy paid for those little girls' tickets to go and watch that. So men also have a part to play. Men have become so cucked. They're going to allow their daughters to go there and sing about how much they hate them. They'll wonder why their daughter will grow up and not listen. My daughter is not being, one, she's not listening to that. Two, I'm not sending her ever. I wouldn't allow her to go. But three, there's no way on God's green earth I'm paying for it.
Andrew Tate touched on something kind of interesting here. So in the past, like decades ago, you could argue, more traditional time, if parents disagreed with their teenage children's choices of music concerts, etc., obviously they can run away, and many did, but there's a difference between a teenager running away and going to some concert to rot their brain versus the parents paying and enabling it. And I mean, look at the sheer incredulity on Tate's face on the entire system, really, and it is kind of humorous because all of these, and by anti-American, I'm talking about the principles of liberty. I'm not talking about the corrupt government officials. A lot of goofs can't tell the difference between what you can call the American spirit and bootlicking government and government officials. Those are two different things, and not only different, complete opposite ends of the spectrum. So what he's talking about here is the idea that all of these anti-American goofs are using the American platform to preach their anti-American ideas, And obviously the whole, I probably should do a podcast on patriarchy itself. One could argue we actually live in a matriarchy, or something closer to a matriarchy than a patriarchy. Because everything's kind of designed with a slant to benefit women instead of men. Everything from the educational systems to the workforce and government and all that stuff. For the past, I don't know, at least 3-4 decades now, the slant has been obvious. Was the slant always there? That's an interesting question. That is actually a very interesting question. Because, you know, women and children first, I mean, that's been established for a really long time. So it's difficult to actually delineate the exact point where the slant became extremely obvious. I mean, you could probably argue somewhere around the 70s, you know, the rise of feminism actually aligned with a more of a matriarchal system than a patriarchal system. And it's obviously all by design by the string pullers to kind of pit men and women against each other as well, and sit back and laugh at all these goofs falling for the feminist ideology as it destroys them and their society. Same thing with all the ideologies, like the manufactured race baiting that all the goofs fall for, while the Illuminati string pullers just sit back and laugh at the peasants fighting amongst themselves because they're too dumb to see all of this. But there is something to say about parents, particularly fathers, actively funding and enabling their children to take positions against not just their family, but the families in general, and the continued degeneracy of society as Taylor Swift specifically promotes. I mean, I don't know anybody that can kind of defend this. First of all, I mean, obviously Taylor's one of these useful idiots. I mean, I'm not quite sure she knows. I mean, mentally, what is she, 13, 14 mentally? I mean, the comprehension, the mental capacity is just not there. So she might be well-intentioned and well-meaning. I'm not saying she is or she isn't. I mean, I don't really know. I'm going to bring up an image now. YouTube obviously getting glitchy. They don't want these types of images on here. Wow. What is going on? Okay. So, I mean, who's defending this from Taylor Swift? I mean, I don't know. But either way, it's almost like a humiliation ritual for fathers to enable their daughters or their sons, not just fathers and mothers, to enable daughters and sons to go to these concerts that promote degeneracy. I mean, they're anti-human. Joyce B in the chat says, good point, Mindshock, exactly right. If there were a Titanic-type disaster today, would women and children first still happen? Sad to say, strong possibility would not. I mean, I don't know, those identifying as women might go first. So all of the men identifying as women might think they're entitled to go ahead of the biological women and children. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, who knows what would happen today?
Like, it's also so crazy what position men have been put in. And if you say that to a man, these straight homos, they're gonna sit there and go, I'm secure, I'm a real man. You don't let your daughter listen to Taylor Swift? Huh? Call yourself a man? Bro, it's crazy what level the Western society is sunk to. And what's scary is that we live in a world where we think the West is the whole world because we live in the West. It's really interesting. I don't know, did you ever see that conversation on the BBC News between a Chinese It was some Chinese guy. He worked for the Chinese government, and they were discussing about the electric vehicles between China and America, England.
No, I
you
didn't.
ever see it? It's really interesting, and I don't want to misquote it, but I think people can find it and send it to you. They were saying that China produces 90% of the electric vehicles, and the UK is concerned about that they produce too many electric vehicles, and that the UK wants to produce some more electric vehicles because they don't want China to have a complete hegemony over the future when we use EVs, etc. And the Chinese member, and they were talking about competition between the two countries. So how do you feel about UK trying to compete with you in the electric vehicle market? And the member of the Chinese government said, we see the UK as a country that was historically important that we'd like to have good relations with. But when it comes to population, when it comes to production capacity, when it comes to safety on the streets, when it comes to educational performance, when it comes to the ability to project force, the UK cannot compete with China in any regard.
Correct.
They're historically believe it's still World War II, but effectively they're a small island far away who we'd like to have good relations with, but we do not see as a competitor or a threat in any regard ever. He just nailed it. Like, who the are the UK?
Pretty much what Putin said, by the way, too. It's like, this is behind. The system is old.
Yeah,
We're
who
moving
cares?
forward. Yeah.
That's right. Completely right. So in the West, we think, the West is the center of the world. But truthfully, we're not the center of very much at all. There's a lot of countries in the world that don't see us as important as we see ourselves. And we don't have a population as large as most of the rest of the world. We don't have the natural resources. We don't have the capability to produce anything. And we're now entering a dynamic where our men, because it's going to be our people against other people, right? Especially in the bipolar world, our men and their pussy-footed approach to life are going to be pitted against men who are prepared to fight and die for real.
Yep.
And we're going to see how that all works out. I guess the idea of the Western elites is that they can just continue to use the dollar to subjugate these nations, and that they can use AI and machines. I mean, for right now,
just launch a world war out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You can reset everything by bombing and exploding and then stealing people's resources.
Right. Or having better technology. We think, we don't need real men in the army because we've got better tech, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we'll see how that all works out. But I think the next 100 years is going to be very interesting when we see that. I mean, we can look at it right now. Let's look at it right now in the UK. 3 little girls were stabbed. The girls that were stabbed were the same age as my daughters. I have 2 daughters age 4. 3 little girls were stabbed to death. A man shouldn't have to feel what a blade is like entering his body, let alone a little girl. It's disgusting. I have seen 0 conversations about how to protect little girls. All I see are the straight homos marching, talking about how they're not racist. What the are you even doing? Right. Have you lost complete context of the situation? Every single conversation should be about how to protect children. And there should be nothing off limits. We shouldn't be afraid to discuss the fact that if people come from X country, they commit violent crime at a 300% higher rate than if they come from other countries. Because everyone talks about the UK being racist. It's probably one of the least racist places on the planet. You want to see racism? Go anywhere else.
Japan.
Africa.
Yep.
They're racist in Africa.
You know, I'm not sure I've heard anybody call this out exactly like this. The fact that Western countries are indeed probably the least xenophobic countries in the entire world. And they're getting, and just the ideology, again, it's like this is one giant Illuminati humiliation ritual where the string pullers are just sitting back laughing at these goofs marching and saying on how let's use the word prejudice, because there's only one race, there's only one human race, and it's just based, for whatever reason, it's only skin color. Nobody cares about hair color, eye color, sneaker brand preference. It's just the obsession over skin color because the string pullers know that the gullible goofs are easily manipulated over that. Where they're America, UK, like the least prejudiced countries in the entire world, and look at the ideology spewed by the clueless. I mean, it is kind of crazy.
They're racist in the Arab world. Everyone's racist. We're the least racist place. And instead of marching to protect little girls, the man who stopped the knife attacker should be a national hero. He should be everywhere. I haven't even seen his face. They don't want to show him because they don't want to remind people the little girls were stabbed. Instead, they wanted to divert the whole conversation to don't be racist. And now we have all these straight homo men walking around. We showed the far right. Yeah, don't be racist. As if they've achieved something. You've forgotten the argument completely. When the knife-wielding attacker is near you, you're going to piss your pants and run. And now you're walking around saying, don't be racist. Now, I agree with don't be racist, but if you are asinine and stupid enough to believe that if you're going to allow thousands of people into your border unchecked, that some of those people are not bad people, you're an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't even say that you're too stupid to conceptualize that. I'd say they're too cowardly to admit it because they're too scared to be racist. So now they're too scared to admit that by refusing to refute that idea, they're letting bad people in. They're going to say, no, all 1 million we let in are all good. They're all doctors and they're all physicists. You don't have to be racist to understand it's not about skin color if people come from a war zone.
I mean, is anybody else I mean, this is some serious subject matter and people are getting killed. But the way he communicates is so entertaining because he really calls out the gophery here. Because, I mean, it is kind of crazy because depending on which statistics you're using, you could make the argument that per 100,000 or whatever, there may be more criminals among natives than immigrants. However, to hallucinate that 100% of the immigrants are non-criminal, to hallucinate that you're not, no matter what you do, like let's say the native population is more criminal, you're still adding crime, you're still adding murders of children to the existing murder rate. And for whatever reason, these goofs, they don't have the mental capacity to process that. Or Tate says they do, but they're too cowardly to admit it. So all the added murdered children are all okay because the natives are committing crimes at a higher rate per capita. That means it's okay to add the murdered children to the existing statistics. That's the level of goofery presented in the mainstream.
They've seen trauma. And they're not going to be particularly balanced all of the time. I would argue if a child sees their parents blown to smithereens, they're not going to grow into a pretty balanced, happy, normal, sane individual. They're coming from the worst places on the planet.
Well, that's part of it, too. Is like, people don't be racist, don't be this. I'm definitely a bigot. Like, I mean, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, that's street smarts, right? Yep. Predicting what I can garner from just looking at you, the
pattern
vibes
recognition.
You're giving,
yep.
the vibes you're giving. What can I understand about what I'm under? I don't trust you. I don't like the way you're moving. I don't like the way you're dressed. Now they're training people to go, having those gut instincts that keep you alive are bigotry, racism, homophobia. It's like, you're telling me this is a party with all homosexual men? Yeah, no, my young son's not going.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my gosh, how dare you say that? Like, this is homophobic, this is heterophobic, this is all of these words really, in my view, meant to just delude people away, like from trusting their gut instincts. Your gut is divine, okay? Yep. Your gut is telling you something's not right. Yep. Like, the person in the classroom says he's a non-binary person who believes that, like, age limits should be evaporated, and he's teaching your kindergarten teacher and your son, and you're allowing that to happen because you're fearful that people at school are going to call you a bigot. Like, I'm a bigot, okay? I put those on. I'm a bigot. I am a bigot. So let me figure out what I have to know about you, because I'm going to let you know whether or not you're allowed access to my children. And so I tell people, do not allow them to call you a bunch of names that essentially rinses you from that divine gut instinct that you have. That's the Holy Spirit saying don't trust this person for whatever reason. And then you have the government telling you that whatever reason that you have, is not right because it's some ism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever.
It's pattern recognition. And they don't want you to have basic pattern recognition skills anymore. And that's what's so crazy, especially with all the things you just said. Absolutely nailed it. And especially with this racism argument.
Like, would you hire a male nanny?
Bro, you must get this. You must get this more than me, right? Because I'm mixed, half black, half white. You're black, right? So they must say, why are you racist? Why have you turned on your own race, etc.? It's not even really truly about race. Like, in jail, I saw people lose their minds, right? I saw people in jail lose their minds, and I saw that they weren't the same anymore. I didn't want to be a
Okay, let's get really controversial. because Joyce B made a comment in the chat here. A certain name we are not allowed to criticize is 100% a supremacist-based apartheid society. Write down as separate license plates on cars to ensure the roads racially set apart or kept separated. Okay, a certain country. Well, let's name the country. I'm guessing you're talking about Israel. Now, this is the greatest ally of the Western world, is it not? They get trillions of dollars. The greatest ally. Let's examine how many refugees this particular nation, getting trillions of dollars, takes in. Let's look at this. These are great questions. Again, I'm not claiming to know any reasons behind anything. We're just examining the publicly available, empirically verifiable statistics from the powers that be themselves. These are not underground GeoCities blogs. These are the mainstream statistics. So they take in roughly 1,000 to 2,000 refugees. Oh, 2019 was 16,000? Wow, that's a lot. Let's check the U.S. Now, obviously, official refugee stats are different than illegals. And also, what type of refugees were there? Because apparently, so 60,000 2023, interesting. So let's examine the xenophobia. Some might call it racism or prejudice. But how easy is it to immigrate to this greatest ally of the West, receiving trillions and trillions of dollars for some reason? Are we going to get shut down in a second here? Should we do a poll? That's curious. Why are they so xenophobic or prejudiced? It's kind of weird. I mean, they receive trillions and you can't immigrate there? That's weird. Anybody find that weird? I don't know. This is Mindshock. I don't claim anything is true or untrue, but these are the official organizations and the official powers that be statistics. What does everybody make of them? The greatest ally of the Western world doesn't want to help people and accept refugees and immigrants? It's kind of weird.
Around those people, I would avoid them as much as possible. I hate the idea of them now being loose in society. That's just jail. In a European nation, okay, it's the worst jails in Europe, Eastern Europe, it's bad. But, you know, we're now talking about war-torn countries, which we've blown up. We have bombed. And people are seeing their families destroyed. People are seeing children headless on the street. You're telling me these people are now sane? And they can just come here and get a job and pay their taxes? Is that what we're going to pretend we believe? Otherwise, we're deemed to be racist? It's not about the color of their skin. It's about all the things they've been through. And I don't want them in the society. But now, like I said, 3 little girls are stabbed to death. And people are marching around pretending that we need more of these people. In fact, they're so desperate to virtue signal. It's not just, okay, they're fine. It's actually, we want more. Look, I'll prove to you how unracist I am. Let in more people from the third world.
Which I'm fine with. They just need to go live with the people that blew up the third world.
Yeah.
Go stay at Hillary Clinton's house. Go stay at Tony Blair's house. Go stay with the families that made money blowing up, Libya and getting rid of Gaddafi. I'm totally cool with that. The people who wanted that war and supported it, you open your homes to the people who are dealing with that trauma of what you did, that flood them out of their nations and stuff. Like, we've created the issues, and then you're telling people that never wanted the wars in the first place that they're the ones that have to invite these people that are dealing and hating the Western world into our homes. It's a nonsense.
Well, exactly. And that's globalism.
Go to Israel.
Well, exactly. Well, that's it.
They love war. Go to Israel.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's globalism in a nutshell, right? Because globalism is effectively people who are detached from the common man's issues, making problems, profiting from it, and then all of the mess gets dumped on the common man. That's what basically happens every single time with every single thing they do. And it's really interesting because the argument is typically, oh, they want a better life and, they need a better life. I understand they want a better life. I'm not blaming them. But letting them in your country because they want a better life is like letting someone in your house because they want a better TV. It's not theirs, right? You can't just let everyone in. Especially what's most crazy is what you let some in and not others, or you let everyone in. Is everyone going to just abandon the planet and just move to the West and it's just going to function somehow? Is that how we see these things? But I guess the two things we're talking here is very interesting because the most primitive, I would guess, and that's perhaps the wrong word, the most essential female biological impulse is reproduction. The most basic thing a woman should want to do is have children. And the most primitive male biological function is protection. Like you just said about your son, he wants his sword. We have women who don't want to have kids, and we have men who don't want to protect society. The fact that men are not marching in England right now saying we must protect all our schools and protect little girls, as opposed to just advocating to allow in a bunch of military-age males who can beat the shit out of them, is really incredible. It's truly incredible. It's amazing they've managed to psyop men to give up all of their protective instincts. And then they've psyoped women into not want to have children anymore. And they've replaced these with some warped version of something else. I mean, I guess, it's the first time I'm saying this, I guess I'm just analyzing on the fly, but I guess these men marching in these anti-racism riots, I guess it's satisfying their protective instinct because they feel like they're protecting the immigrants, maybe? I don't know. And they're afraid to protect their own people because they don't want to be deemed racist and they can't defend their opinion. But it's really interesting when you say straight homos because you nailed it. They're like, you meet men and they're like, oh yeah, and they're supposed to have a wife. They're all just gay.
Yeah,
they're all gay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you can't do anything, and I could beat you up. That's why I'm like, hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, that your father's a straight homo. You know what I mean? Like, I know that he is straight sexually, but also he's a homo.
Yeah.
And in that 90 sense of like, there's nothing he can do here, and he knows that.
Yeah.
And so I do also want to, in closing, commend you on something which was so crazy. So there was this person who was doing like a bunch of digital content. I thought his content was amazing, got into touch. I mean, figured out this is like a young school kid, like basically essentially like 20 years old, like just turned 20 years old. And I'm like, dude, you're a hustler. You're a hustler. Like, where did you learn how to do all of this stuff? Like, I'm going to hire you. I'm like, what school did you go to? Harvard, Columbia, Hustler University. I said, excuse me? What's Hustler? I went to Andrew Tate's school and I learned how to do all of these. I mean, this kid is going to make a killing. I mean, I'm telling you, he's going to make an absolute killing. It's like around the clock, work.
Yeah.
Comes from the wrong side of the tracks. I figure out, hired him. one of the greatest hires that I've had, like unbelievably. And so that really, to me, also signals a lot, because I talk about what is so wrong with the education system. And then you learn that these kids, this is why they hate you, these kids who just want a freaking opportunity, who will work around the clock, who just want to be able to feed their families someday, who come from the wrong side of the tracks, are jumping into, I genuinely don't even know what Hustle University is, but I know that that kid is 10 times more effective than people that are coming out of with college degrees right now as looking for somebody. He is a hustler, like literally is a hustler.
Yeah.
And so I want to commend you on whatever it is that you built that created this young kid who's going to absolutely crush it. And that should really signal to people that there is something so corrupt and wrong that the majority of these kids who graduate with their $100,000 degrees are going to make $35K and live a life in debt and to eventually become a slave while they laugh at people who follow Andrew Tate and go to Hustler University because they're going to take over these kids.
No, and that means a lot to me. And actually, I've been told by various people in large positions of power, and that's also one of the reasons why I was so heavily attacked, because I'm going to war against the educational system. Because the educational system, as you just highlighted, is $100,000 for a degree. It takes 4 years. It takes up all of your time. You're in massive debt. And the fact that the loans are linked only to the education shows it's a scam in and of itself. You can't get that loan for anything else. You can only get it for the education, because they don't want that loan to be out in the fair market.
Starting a
ideas.
business, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you say you can get a loan and you can get a degree or XYZ, nobody will get a degree because they know it's a scam. And it suffers from double inflation. It gets more expensive every year to go to college, plus more degrees exist every year. It basically has no value whatsoever.
Again, Andrew Tate laying the smackdown on the public indoctrination system. I mean, this is actually fairly basic logic. More people going to college, more degrees, less value, while inflation skyrockets out of control by the corrupt government as it manipulates the fiat currency. So what was once a way to get ahead in the, many decades ago, when everybody and their mother didn't have random degrees, that could be seen as a leg up on the competition in many fields. That's actually true decades ago. Now, factoring in, not only have the prices of these degrees at indoctrination facilities skyrocketed, but the dollar's worth has plummeted. So it's actually kind of deceptive as how expensive degrees of indoctrination have become. They've become exponentially more expensive because not only have the numbers gone up, but the value of each dollar has plummeted down. And the level of goofery from the mainstream in kind of pretending and hallucinating this isn't the case, it's kind of weird. It's definitely kind of weird.
And we started Hustlers University as a way to teach children, not even kids, it was to teach people how to make money online primarily. We have 18 modern wealth creation methods. It's $49 a month. And we decided to make it, we said, look, we're going to put it out there in the marketplace of ideas. You don't need to get a loan to come here. You can spend your $49 on pizza, or you can spend it on this. We're competing with the entire world, and we're very large.
I actually want to model it now, because people have been saying to me, you should do a seminar and stuff. And I'm like, actually, you're so right. I wish I had not been a fool and taken out $100,000. I paid it back.
Yeah.
But I learned nothing.
Yeah.
I learned nothing. Everything that I actually became in life was because of the street smarts that I already had.
That's right.
And I would have rather have spent the $49 on the Hustler University program so I could learn what skill set, here's what they're using. He literally said he learned editing skills that somebody else would have paid $150K to learn.
Yeah, we're doing very well. And
so it's $49. Tell me again how it works.
So it's $49 a month to get access to 18 modern wealth creation methods. We teach all the different things about how to make money. We also have some concentration tests in there, because a lot of the people who join are quite young and they have TikTok brains. So we force them to learn how to sit down and pay attention again. And we teach 18 different ways to make money. We have different professors in there. We have live calls every day. It's now the largest online educational platform in the world. We own university.com, which they really hate. That was an $8 million domain. So we bought university.com.
No way.
Yeah, that's ours. And I've actually been told that me going to war against the educational system is one of the reasons I got in so much trouble, because now you have children who are choosing $49 a month and then starting to make contracts and make money online within a few weeks, as opposed to going to get these $100,000 degrees and getting in debt. So we're doing very, very well. And I'll tell you
I
something.
hired someone. He even said I graduated at the top of my like hustler university class. I mean, he was like, yeah, I was one of the best in like sales, and I was just like, I think it's incredible. I love it. As someone who came with a family that could not afford a single dollar towards the education system, I was then forced to drop out in my senior year, who then became a slave to loans.
Yeah.
I really want to commend you on that, because that kid is now cutting so many corners in life because of something that, you know, the monstrous Andrew Tate
taught him how to do. But
Yeah.
we teach agency, and also one of the reasons why we decided to do that is I also think that it's a lot easier to resist depression if you have the ability to make your own money. A lot of these people, once they start working corporate, they're screwed. You know, if you work for a corporation, you're going to have to get the jab, and you're going to have to wear the mask, and you're going to have to go to HR meetings, and you're going to have to call that he or she. So by teaching people to make their own money and have their own, or at least have their own faith in themselves that they can make their own money, it allows them to be freer in their minds. Hustlers University has been under massive attack by the Matrix as well. We have a whole bunch of tech problems. They keep trying to attack us and hack us and all these kind of things. And the MSM actually did an article attacking me, saying that I am promoting homophobia inside of my university, because what happens is, I mean, we have 250,000 students now. It's quite large.
Wow.
So I'm not in charge of all of the chats. Of course, I'm CEO, so I don't even know what's happening in the chats all the time. But we have open chat rooms where the students can talk with each other, which are moderated by AI, and we have a few moderators, but we can't moderate everything. And one guy said, "How do I cancel my subscription?" And everyone started replying rainbows. And I found it super funny. And because I laughed about it, they did this whole BBC hit piece on how my school promotes homophobia. Like, there's nothing I can do right in the world, unfortunately. I have TakePledge.com. I dedicate $25 million a year to feeding people. That's somehow wrong. I have an online educational platform that costs less than pizza, that teaches children how to focus and pay attention to make money online. Somehow that's wrong. I teach men how to be strong and to resist depression and to go to the gym and not be afraid to stand up for themselves. Somehow that's wrong. Like, you can't win against these people anymore.
Well, because you're teaching them the code of how not to be enslaved by the Matrix. And so that's problematic. It's why I'm deemed problematic. It's why Ye, who survived Hollywood, in my view, survived MK Ultra attempt, is considered problematic, because you're teaching people to believe in themselves. And I think that's the number one thing that I have learned throughout all of this, is that what they really hate is the mother effing audacity. Like the audacity, Candace, when for you to go out on your own and like you were a part of this and you think that you can just keep saying that Brigitte Macron is a man. Yeah, Brigitte Macron has a penis.
Yeah.
I've said that, and I'm going to keep saying that
That's right.
because I've looked into it and it's true.
Been around.
And yeah, I've been around. I know a man when I see one, and this does not pass a sniff test. And to say, you know, that these acts happened. And so I think that is the problem with people like you, people like me, people like Ye, is that we're giving people the permission to be themselves.
It's so interesting you say that, because the first time I was ever super heavily attacked by the Matrix is when I said depression wasn't real. And the backlash was incredible.
Because drugs. They drug these kids out of their minds.
That's right. They were so desperate to try and convince me or demonize me for saying depression wasn't real. And I was like, look, feeling depressed is real, but I believe you have control of your own mind, and it's down to you to fix it. You don't need drugs, and you haven't caught a disease. You just need to change your scenario, change your settings. Now, PTSD is real. I can tell you, I had it after jail. I know that mental health issues are real, of course. What I'm trying to say is that depression as an idea in the West is so massively overprescribed that it no longer has any value.
It's just sadness.
It's just sadness.
You're just sad. That's a normal human emotion. Like, you know, go outside, go for a run, hang out with your friends.
That's right. I see
that's going to keep coming. Like waves of sadness. We're all sad. We get sad sometimes.
Completely. I see it all the time. I see men to me, "Oh, I'm depressed." I look at them and say, "I'd be depressed too if I was you. You're a loser." Yeah. Like, of course you're depressed. Your life's because you're a loser because you've achieved nothing.
Wow. I mean, that amount of bluntness, modern society has just become so weak that it just can't handle any amount of bluntness. Because that's blunt. I mean, that is indeed blunt. I mean, if you poison yourself all day, physically and mentally, I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to accomplish much, and you're not going to feel good about yourself being a slave. Being mentally and physically enslaved. So, I mean, just this amount of bluntness delivered this succinctly. I mean, once again, this is absolutely mind-shocking. I mean, I think Andrew Tate really leveled up for this interview.
So it's not a disease. You got work to do. That's the bottom line of it. We've overprescribed it to the point where it has no point at all. I'm sure 1% of depressed people might have something wrong with them, of course, fine. But if you're going to say everybody has depression, I don't.
And you already know all the triggered goofs and scientists and bootlickers, they're going to completely ignore what he just said. He said, obviously, there are a select few, whatever he said, one in however many, actually do have some kind of legit condition. But the 99% don't, and out of that 99, a lot of them just use it as an excuse. Like, how many obese people pretend they have a thyroid condition? Now, obviously, a certain percentage do. A small percentage actually do. But the majority don't, and they just use it as an excuse because of the narcissism, lack of accountability, mental weakness, etc. Same thing with what he's saying about depression. 99% of the people going to therapy have very easy to fix their issues. Stop poisoning yourself mentally and physically. Boom. Problem solved. Now that problem might not be solved for this 1% or less than 1% that have really legitimate conditions. And obviously all the goofs completely ignore that statement.
I don't even know what the statistics are, but I read something very scary about the amount of people in America that are on some kind of psychotropic
They start
drug.
them young. They'll be like, "Oh, you have
Is it
anxiety."
like 20% or 30% of people or something?
It has to be more. It has to be more. Genuinely, like everybody is on these drugs, and they know long term that these drugs eventually make you crazy because you're playing with the chemistry of your brain. You should never do that.
See, I apply this to my current circumstance. I apply this to my current problem because the way you always attack men to try and damage your influence is sexual crimes, right? So I'm applying this to my own case. 3 different countries, they've called over 2,000 women who I've ever known in my life. And they managed to find these 2 idiots, and you've done a breakdown of the case, which I super appreciate. And they haven't found anyone else, thankfully. But if 30% of the people they're calling are on mind-altering drugs, that's scary to me. I'm thinking, wait, as a full-grown man, if you ever get famous and you ever talk against the Matrix and you ever have any kind of money and influence, because your ability to speak freely is directly correlated with your insignificance. You can only talk freely when nobody listens. If people listen to you and you talk freely, you soon realize that there really isn't that much freedom of speech because they will come for you and they will try and wreck you with everything they can.
Right.
It reminds me of a point on freedom, which I want to talk about quickly. But now we're saying that this percentage of the population are on drugs. I always found this interesting when they say, we've been through his past, we found these people. What percentage of the population are autistic? What percentage of the population are mentally ill? And then what percentage of the population are on mind-altering drugs or depressed of some kind or anxious or whatever they're on? And then we're going to say and find someone from 11 years ago and say their eyewitness testimony without any other proof is golden. It's just so crazy.
Christine Blasey Ford, 20 years ago, happened.
It's scary to me. It's actually very scary. The point I wanted to make on freedom is very interesting because you've experienced how the Matrix tries very hard to shut you up and they try to intimidate you. They try and ruin your life and intimidate you. That's effectively what they try and do. And it takes a particularly stubborn type of person.
I am. I'm a Taurus. I'm just like
I'm ready. I'm built different.
I'm built different.
I love being a thorn in their side much more than whatever they can do to me. Yeah. It's like I'm in jail. I'm like, yeah, but I pissed them off.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they hate how happy we are too.
Oh, completely.
And they're like, this shouldn't be the results.
They're miserable.
We've done the studies.
Yeah.
And once we do these psychological attacks and we psychologically terrorize them and their family, they should be fatigued and broken.
That's right.
And then we just emerge and we're like, hey.
Still standing.
Built different.
They can't stand it. But another one of my theories about the LGBT whole thing and the reason that they're marching in the street is, of course, they're trying to get everybody's children. But I also believe that it's part of propping up the false guise of freedom, right? Because what the West has built itself on is a very thin culture, and it's built itself on the idea that everybody can get rich. Nothing unifies us. If you look at here in Romania, even in this country, everyone has the same language, you have the same religion, they all watch the same TV shows growing up. Right? They have the same folk stories. They do the same thing at Christmas. Everyone has a similarity amongst them. So even if they disagree politically, there's a lot that unifies the people, which is why it's a safe society.
Again, the level of truth bomb drops here is just absolutely astounding by Tate. Look at American society before the rollout of social media. There were these unifying points before streaming, before all of these infinite choices or illusion of choices. There was a certain unification because people had the same, I mean, not across the entire country, but you take one community in the 90s, whatever. Everybody's going home and watching Time Tracks or Renegade or whatever. Then they're going and engaging in their local culture of their community. There's all these unifiers. Now, post social media, with these infinite illusions of choice, there really aren't that many unifiers. And now you've seen basically what's amounting to the collapse of Western society in real time. Now, obviously, the psychological warfare has also been ramped up exponentially. Now, is it accidental that all of this is happening at the same time? The Mindshock listeners can be the judges of that.
I remember when we went to school when we were young, you'd go and you'd talk about the TV show from the night before that everybody watched. Everybody. And now we don't have that anymore, right? So the only thing that unifies people in the West, because there's nothing that unifies us. We don't agree on the flag. We don't agree on religion. We don't, not the same skin color. We don't speak the same language. There's nothing that unifies us except this idea that we can become rich. Go to the West, get rich, be nice to people. But now everyone's realizing you're not going to get rich. And this is where the problems are coming because they're realizing the American dream's a sham. And it's a lie. So we have this very thin culture. And we say these other countries, well, they have thicker cultures. Their cultures aren't thin, and a thick culture is good for the cohesion of society, but they're not free. And we're free. And then I sit and think, well, if you speak against authority in the West, they teach you a lesson, so you're not actually free. So how do they prop up this false idea of freedom? What they do is they put the freaks to the front. So what they do is they push the freaks to the front. So they say, look, this person chopped their off. We're free. In other countries, you can't chop your off. It's like, okay, that's fine. But I am not free to do anything important, like speak against power, like speak against AIPAC.
You're free to hurt yourself.
You're free to do dumb. You're not free to actually talk about anything important ever.
Now, a lot of people thought I possibly was being a little bit hyperbolic or facetious in titling these videos. What does everybody think now? Was that not Socrates level delivery and content right there? I mean, wow. Who has phrased it quite like that? I've never heard anybody break down the Matrix quite this way.
And I feel like one of the reasons why they're promoting all this degeneracy is to try and keep this bullshit idea of freedom alive. Because if they took that away, you'd wake up and realize, oh, okay, this is actually no different than most of the world. And I'm not going to attack only the West for this. You can't talk against Putin in Russia, and you can't talk against Islam in Saudi, and you can't talk against the king of Laos. I'm sure you're going to pay a price. That's how the world actually is. We're the only ones who are lying about it. Sitting and saying, no, you can't talk, you can, we're free. The truth is you can't talk against authority at all. And to try and distract everyone and keep this bull dream of freedom alive, they're going to push freaks to the front, which is why I think that the freaks are getting more and more outlandish, because people are starting to realize that the freedom isn't real and they're starting to feel the cage and close. So as people are starting to sit there and realize, wait, maybe I don't live in a free country. Maybe my government is owned. Maybe they are all homosexual pedophiles. Maybe I am paying too much taxes just to blow up children. Maybe nobody has my interests at heart. Maybe my elections aren't real. Maybe my children are being brainwashed. Maybe my streets are unsafe because they refuse to police them properly. Maybe all these drugs could be stopped. Maybe, wait. He's chopped his off.
There's a man in a dress.
It's free. Freedom.
I mean, you really have to appreciate. I mean, this is also, I'm getting shades of George Carlin here with just the, I mean, he's laced this level of truth bombing with entertaining comedic delivery. I mean, this is truly something else. I mean, just the exposing of statism while being this entertaining, I've never seen anybody do this.
And I really think
you could never have a man wear a dress in Putin's Russia.
That's right.
I was like, I think I want to go there. That sounds like, yeah, I don't want men wearing dresses.
And that's the most crazy thing about it, is that trying to show this freedom, they're actually showing to anybody with a brain things we don't even want to see, right? You can take that away. That's fine. Let's take that away. Another thing about talking against government, because I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, okay, well, then why are you saying America's so bad when you can't talk against government anywhere else? And I said, well, the reason for that is because if you're in Russia, you know who your boss is, right? I don't personally disagree with Putin, so I wouldn't want to talk against Putin. But if you live in Russia and you do want to talk against power, you know who you're talking against. Our biggest problem here in the West is that we don't even truly, really know who we're talking against.
I mean, again, I think it's becoming painfully obvious that this video is accurately titled, is it not? Again, who has delivered this much truth? Alex Jones hasn't dropped this much truth bombs in a single video. You can argue that over 30 years, maybe he has. This is one interview. This is one interview, and Tate has touched on just about all of the facets of the cult of statism. All of the facets of psychological subversion through propaganda. All of the facets of the means of control of the Matrix. I mean, who is truly not impressed here? I wonder if the guy that was criticizing Tate at the beginning, Justice Wants, Justice Wants, are you still here? You weren't impressed because you thought he was kind of saying stuff that was already known, but like he really ramped it up to close this interview out. Like, can anybody name? I mean, I don't think Bill Cooper dropped this many truth bombs in a single interview. Now, you can argue over the course of his career, maybe. In a single interview, though? In one interview? Tate might have just taken the mantle for spitting more truth in a single interview than anybody ever in a single interview.
I know that the LGBT homo mafia are in charge somewhere, which I know that's clear because they can in the Senate building and nothing happens. So that's obvious. But it's like, who? And we're spending all our time going down rabbit holes of Israel or Big Pharma or military industrial complex or Globo Homo, or you're like, who is even in charge of this mess? Davos, WEF, that's the thing that's most scary to me. It's not the fact that we can't speak against power, because you can't in a lot of places. It's that we're not even allowed to know who the powerful are, because then they're accountable. It's all just theories. If they were to say it's this person, this person, and this person, those people would be in a lot of trouble very quickly. Mm-hmm. So they've removed their attachment to anything. So there's not even any accountability anymore in the West. That's what's truly scary. I'm just asking, I would like to know who's in charge here. I'd like to just wake up and say, you walk into a restaurant and everything's manager. Like, why is there cockroaches? What's going on? I'd like to just go, who's the manager of the West now? Who's actually in charge of any of this mess anymore? At least in other countries, you get the good fortune of knowing who your boss is. Right. Right?
Yeah, I keep trying to figure out why I'm supposed to hate Putin. I'm like, okay, so he doesn't let people desecrate churches. You can't just take your boobs out as a woman and like say you're protesting and stand on top of like a statue of Jesus Christ. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be hating this. You're telling me this is authoritarian. This is authoritarian, but what you guys are doing, locking up people for peacefully protesting on January 6th, hunting grandmothers, is not authoritarian.
That's right.
Because women are allowed to be whores. Yeah. Like I'm like, everything about this, like if that's going to be the boss, that makes more sense to me than the people, the deep state, the homosexual agenda, the pedophilia that's being promoted. The pedophiles are allowed to write articles and protect other pedophiles. Sounds a lot better to me to have him as my boss than the, like you said, the invisible bosses, or maybe one boss who knows that we're fighting and we see that they're perverse.
Yep.
I'm not going to necessarily disagree with Candace here about a better boss per se, but why have a boss at all? That's my main question. I'm not sure if Candace has discovered statism yet. Definitely hasn't when she was bootlicking on the Convicting Murder documentary. But I'm not sure if she's gone down the statism rabbit hole just yet.
And I totally agree with you.
Yeah, he's a competent nationalist, which is what anybody with a brain should want for their country. You should want a competent nationalist who puts your interest above the interests of anybody else.
Now, this is probably the only part of this interview where I think Tate is off base, because again, he's exposing statism possibly better than just about anybody else has, maybe other than Larkin Rose, maybe, or Bill Cooper, but here he's kind of saying you should want that for your country. I mean, why would you need a ruler, though? We're not going to spend too much time on that. That's probably the only negative about this entire interview.
And showering with his 4-year-old daughter, and the whole mainstream media colluding to hide the diary. We have Hunter Biden smoking crack and sleeping with people that look way too young, talking about incest on text messages, and the entire mainstream media colluding to cover these stories. Yeah, no, I think I want to try the other boss if I can, just for a second. I just want to try to work there for a week and see what happens.
Absolutely. So and you're completely right. We say, oh, Russia's not a free country because, you can't do LGBT insanity. And that's the only thing they can really come at them for. They can't come at them for. They've arrested 1/10 of the people the UK have arrested for Facebook posts.
Whoa. See, we're going off the rails here. Who would have thought that in 2024, the UK, a supposedly free Western country, is arresting more people for social media posts than Russia? Oh, man. I mean, this kind of is insane, isn't it? So the numbers as of last year that I found, whoa, this is crazy. I think it's actually even worse than Tate. I think Tate has 2 conservative numbers. But, I mean, either way, UK was more, either by a few hundred or a few thousand, depending on the sources here. I'm not going to put them all on the screen, there's just too many. But, wow. I mean, who would have thunk it? I mean, we're in full-blown clown world reality now. Here's a meme I shared on Twitter today. Think you guys might enjoy it. What is going on in the world today? You have the UK arresting more people for social media. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
So I think Tucker highlighted this. In the UK, I think it was in 2022, they arrested 4,500 people for their social media comments. In Russia, it was 400. So the UK is 10 times worse for policing speech than Russia. Free country, right? But Russia's not free because we don't allow them to, they're not allowed to poison the children, so they're not free. So it's actually the thing that's most scary about this freak show is the reason they're pushing it so hard to the front is because they're trying to keep this imaginary balloon of freedom and the American dream and all this garbage ahead because we have a very thin culture. Nothing's unifying us in the West besides the idea that somehow we're free and that somehow we'll one day get rich. That's it. And that's what's so scary. You know what I found interesting about American culture? You know the eclipse that was recent? There was an eclipse where the solar eclipse, it was like a few months ago. Can't remember. It was going through a few states. And I was reading on Twitter, they were talking about how the eclipse is coming and you need to be careful because it's going to be dark for 2 minutes and beware of crime and all this shit. And I sat there thinking, American culture is so thin that if it gets dark in the middle of the day for 2 minutes, there's going to be crime? People are going to rob cars? Is that how close we are to apocalypse? Is it that bad? Like, even we talk about Ukraine-Russia war, even though I agree with Putin, I think he's completely justified. The Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government, who I have distaste for, but the Ukrainian people, they're still in lines buying food. It's war. They're in a line with money buying food during war. America, it'd be looting. It would be fires.
I mean, this is just so crazy. I mean, perhaps. I mean, again, I don't know if Socrates even existed, and I don't know if he was this funny. Who thinks Socrates was this funny and entertaining? I mean, this is kind of hilarious. Though. This reminds me. Does anybody remember? I believe it was a famous like blockbuster movie where there was this one like I guess it was a super short monologue where one character was saying how society is just hanging by a thread. Was it a zombie movie? I wonder if it was Dawn of the Dawn of the Dead remake. Maybe it was it was either a zombie. Actually, you know what? Maybe it wasn't a zombie or a post-apocalyptic movie. Maybe it was just some random action movie where some character was just talking about how society, like everything, you know, once the power goes out, it's over. If the power's out for longer than a certain period of time, civilized society is over because civilized society is just like some kind of illusion. Does anybody remember this movie? It was a mainstream movie. It was like a big studio movie, big Hollywood studio movie. Probably maybe 20 years old or so, somewhere around 20 years ago, I'm guessing. It's like a 90s, early 2000s movie. Where You Were When the... No, that doesn't sound familiar. Oh, you said that's from the 60s? No, it was 90s through early 2000s. Pre-2010 for sure. Pre-2010 for sure. I'm guessing late 90s, early 2000s. For some reason, I'm kind of thinking Dawn of the Dead 2004. But I'm not sure. It was maybe I'm thinking that movie because I watched another movie around that same time. So that would be somewhere around 04, 05, I guess. I'm not convinced it was a zombie or post-apocalyptic movie. It might have just been a character making an observation about society and how it's kind of all illusionary, like civilized society is illusionary because if the power goes out for more than X amount of days, there is no civilized society. It was quite a powerful, like, little speech. It wasn't that long, and it stayed with me. Was that Book of Eli, if it was a post-apocalyptic movie? I actually don't remember much about that movie at all. I've seen it. I don't remember thinking it was really good or really bad, but I just don't remember anything about it. For some reason I'm thinking no, because doesn't that take place after, like, because this would have been either during or before Blackout. I don't think the title was related to the speech. But anyway, I'll try to find it, because it was quite good. But what Tate is talking about here reminded me of that, because everything's always hanging by a thread, isn't it?
It would be free for all within 2 minutes. We are on the absolute precipice of societal breakdown all of the time. And the only thing that's keeping it together is everyone sitting around going, don't worry, you'll be rich one day, while a political class just rape the tax base for as long as they can before they disappear into the sunset. How long until this all goes wrong? I mean, it's an interesting thing to observe from afar. It's super interesting.
Yeah.
The one thing that makes me think possibly he might be a shill, he was kind of a little too gleeful in talking about that, wasn't he? He seemed to be quite a bit gleeful. Now, I don't know if it's because he kind of sees himself as Romanian instead of American now, because that could possibly explain the glee without him being a shill, but who knows?
I think about it every day. I tell people I have an apocalyptic mindset. I've learned to grow vegetables.
Yep.
My husband hunts, he fishes. We're going to be good in the middle of the forest and we're going to survive. And you
Yep.
better think deeply about who you would want. I say this all the time in your tribe. And you're going to realize that it all comes down to basic survival skills.
Yep.
Can you hunt? Can you shoot? Can you fight? Can you grow food?
Yep.
Can you take after the children? And the majority of Westerners are ill-equipped for those things. They're like, well, I can receive the New York Times and read it and comprehend what they're telling me to believe. And that's going to be problematic. And so in conclusion, I would like you to speak to the straight homos. Because the straight homos, they need some guidance, you know? They need some guidance.
It's
They
true.
do.
It's
They
true.
think they hate you, but deep down they know that there's something that you're saying that really what they hate is what was inside of themselves. There's like a cowardice within them that they hate, and so they have to attack you. And so we're going to get free advice. You don't even have to sign up for Hush University. You don't even have to buy a Standis cup. You're going to get free advice, all you straight homos out there, from Andrew Tate, and you can just implement this into your life. Andrew Tate, take it away.
Sure. All right, let me try and think of something which is going to be inspirational. So
I'm going to whoop your ass.
I should say the reason they're a coward in the first place is because they're afraid of confrontation. But I want everyone at home to understand, especially if you're a man, that confrontation is certain and it's always going to be around. If you're a king, there's never been a point in human history where you were a king with an empire where people were not trying to take your empire from you. And if you're not a king with an empire, then you're a pawn in somebody else's empire and you're going to have your head chopped off for some reason anyway. Confrontation is certain. If you try to avoid confrontation, you're going to end up in confrontation with yourself. The reason these straight homos are so desperately sad, the reason they have ADHD and anxiety and depression, the reason they're sitting at home, even if they don't admit to these ailments, wondering why they're so unhappy all the time, is because you're fighting an internal battle. Your monologue is different in your mind from what your spirit truly wants. You want to be respected. You want to be strong. You want to stand up for what you know is right. You want to be a man, and you're just too afraid to engage the enemy, so you're going to self-destruct. You're going to turn on yourself. There's a fire inside of you. There's a fire inside of absolutely every man, and you can either direct it at your enemy and do your very best to destroy him, or it's going to burn inside of you and eat you alive. You have to make a choice. The cowardice that you feel that prevents you from engaging the enemy is the biggest betrayal, because now you're just engaging yourself. The battle's certain either way. So I strongly recommend you find who the enemy is and direct your efforts towards their destruction, as opposed to sitting there allowing yourself to self-immolate.
Wow. Has anybody spoken wiser words in the modern era than Andrew Tate just did right there? Now, like I said, I've heard bits and pieces of other interviews and videos he's done. I've never heard him say anything as wise as not only what he just said here, but this entire interview. It's like he's Andrew Tate Super Saiyan mode, where this entire interview has been so impressive, whereas I don't know if I've ever been truly impressed by any other video he's ever done. What he just said, is it possible? Like, he literally took 3 seconds to think of that and then fired that all off. Now, maybe that was a rehearsed speech he was waiting to unleash, but if that really was just spur of the moment spitballing, then his intellect is even far greater than I imagined. Because to be able to say something that eloquent and profound on the spot, like if he just riffed that, that has to be Socrates level. Is Andrew Tate not a modern day Socrates? I think everybody thought I was joking at the beginning of part 1. I think everybody thought I was joking, but when the receipts come flowing in, just like with Steven Seagal, when the receipts start piling up and the pile doesn't stop, and the pile gets so high that you can't even see the top of it, what say ye now? That was just truly profound from Tate. And again, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it quite like that. And now, like, if Andrew Tate always was like this, it would kind of make more sense why they wanted to take him out so quickly. But this is literally the first interview I've seen where he's just been this eloquent and profound in his exposing of statism and his philosophical musings on solutions to the problems of the world.
I think it's actually very sage advice. There is a fire in all of the men, and it has to be directed in the right way. Well, Andrew, it has been a pleasure having you. This conversation is going to be so banned, so demonetized.
Sorry.
I don't care. I literally don't care. I said, don't care, build different, because people need to hear it. And I also am very optimistic because I think that people are starting to recognize that we keep telling them the truth about what's happening in the world, and it's taking them a while to catch up. But there's enough distrust now in the mainstream media that people are starting to listen to independent voices and go directly to the source, rather than allowing the mainstream media to tell them about those people and pretend that they're hateful because we believe in natural order, you know? All right, guys, that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Candace. We will see you next time.
And you know what else is kind of strange? I haven't heard his brother Tristan Tate talk that often. It seems like Tristan's just more out there to, trigger goofs, like Tate was as well. But Tate totally leveled up here. I mean, just incredibly. Does anybody know if Tristan is actually anywhere near this level? Because I would guess no, which is kind of strange because they're brothers, supposedly. So let's get into Owen Cook now. Get ready to have your minds blown because Cook is going to tackle the psychological aspect, breaking it down, also in a way that I just have never heard anybody even come close to. If you thought Tate was impressive here, I mean, Cook is also on another level. I mean, we're talking modern day Socrates here. And once again, like I said, I've seen bits and pieces and clips. I don't know if I've seen like a full multi-hour video straight through before of his. He says some interesting things here and there. But same thing as with Tate. I was never truly impressed with Tate until this interview. And I was never impressed with Cook until this video.
Welcome to the largest.
Heracles in the chat says, respectable beard, JJ would be pleased. That is a respectable beard, is it not? A sign of wisdom. Although I don't know what to make of it being coupled with sunglasses and a baseball hat. And some kind of weird Hawaiian-style shirt. You know, it'd be kind of crazy if we actually made it through this whole thing without getting shut down. I'm not going to play the whole video because a lot of it has nothing to do with anything. Just give me a second.
That's what scares me, is the overall phenomenon of it, and that we're not addressing this in human nature. But I don't care about the actual loss. It doesn't matter to me. What would I be doing with unlimited money? Coaching. No money, coaching. It's like OG like Russian mafia type guys are like, oh. I'm like, what's up, guys? I'm actually known as the guy that always brings in the hot girls. Yep. Because they see me, I got my shirt off, I got back hair, I got man boobs, I got a pot belly, I got a bald head, and I got a gray beard. So they think I'm old like them, and I'm always with these friggin' dime pieces, right? And they're like, how do you do this? Because they can tell they really like me too.
I mean, a lot of these are just random stories, and he's a pickup artist. So, I mean, just the dichotomy here, you wouldn't think that a guy like this was about to deconstruct the Matrix and human psychology, possibly better than anyone else in modern history, shortly. Like within a minute or two, he's going to do it here.
You know, they're like, how do you do it? How do you do it? What's your secret? And I'm like, hey, you know. So, yeah, I'm known as that guy, right? So anyway, yeah, they're in their bikinis, right? So they're looking real good. I can go do banya, but what does that do when I do Russian banya?
You got present, rejuvenates the body, soul, mind, spirit.
How much of a better job could I do this weekend if I went to Russian banya before? Better. So is it just for me? No. Okay. If I live comfortably, do I just keep that only for myself, or do I share that around?
You share that.
Okay. So I've had a lot of blessings, so I go do things like free events, right? So you're circulating the energy. Okay. So part of spiritual awakening is recognizing that you're not just your physical body or ego, you are the energy that animates your body as a sense of identification. So if I see you, and you could be a derper, you're not, but say that you're a derper, but if I see that light animating your body, and I believe that I'm part of that, that there's a strand of light going from me to the source, and that I'm not the source, I'm not God. Anyone who says that's nuts. We're all gods. Shut the fuck up. But, okay, like, come on. Like, bro, figure out how to tie your fucking shoes and you can call yourself God.
I actually didn't remember that he said that. I don't know if he's taking shots here at David Icke. But I'm actually kind of surprised that Owen Cook just said that. Because in a lot of spiritual systems that talk about cosmic consciousness, like even the Hindu mythology, the ancient Hindu mythology and philosophy and cosmology, where the cosmic consciousness, the shared consciousness of all living things, is what's considered God. So it's interesting. I'm actually kind of surprised that he took shots at that. It's kind of weird. Anyway, let's continue.
But metaphorically, right? So the thing is, like, there's a strand of light that goes down and goes back to source that animates me. That goes to you too. So not only are all of us in this room related, I mean, we're all related, but then in addition to that, if you identify as the light, not in a condescending, like, I am the light, shut the fuck up, your name's Chris, okay? But the point is that if when you begin to identify as the light, here's what's going to change. You're going to see people different, and you're going to see yourself in other people, and what you want to do is you want to animate that in other people. You want to switch that on in other people, because that's an expansion of yourself. So when you see another vessel, you see that as a source of expansion to help expand that. And then when you do that, you get more light. Right. Now, what happens is, as more light comes in, when you call that down, then what starts happening is you actually start to speak from that place and operate from that place. And it heals you of trauma in a major, major, major way. You get surging energy through you. It gets rid of your stress in a major way. You don't really get in a bad mood. It cleanses you pain body. Why? Because pain body attacks low vibration energy. It attacks you in the mind. But if you're not just stuck up in your head, then you don't really get pain body attacks anymore. You feel a cleansing thing happening in your body, a healing happening in your body. And also, you get a lot of energy. And if you're tapping into that light in order to be energized for work, you'll find that you actually get energized from work. You don't really view work as a chore. Also, if you're very present to the moment, you don't mind work that can be a little bit monotonous as long as it's bringing more light. So what winds up happening is, let's use that with social skills. You go to a nightclub, you want to add light to that club. So you don't have approach anxiety because you actually want to go light the club up. You don't look like a value taker taking value maybe from a girl that you like because you view her as having that light as well and you want her to have a great night with you. So you're just making an offering. She could take it or leave it, but you're making an offering.
We're not seeing the light whenever you're
That's right. Okay?
seeing our light, we're not seeing other people's.
Not seeing your light, not seeing other people's light. So you're getting it. Okay? So it's where what you identify as will impact what thoughts, because there's the witnessing consciousness. So What are you witnessing? Are you shifting the witness to the ego running thought loops? Are you shifting the witness to the body? Or are you shifting the witness to the soul? So the soul begins speaking for you. That's why you can't teach public speaking at a high level. People don't understand that. That's why public speakers who don't understand need a PowerPoint. That's why my 11-year-old kid, when he was 11 at the time, he started to public speak. He didn't need training. Most of what I'm doing to you guys in these programs is to help you in this area. Most of what I'm doing in infield training is to help you with this. You just don't know it. I'm distracting you while I'm trying to turn the light on. That's what I'm doing. Okay? Okay. Okay? Or you can rename yourself Cooper and blind the masses and lock them down. I mean, hey, whatever floats your boat, you know? We're all connected to something, right? So, you know, we're all connected to something. So, so the thing is, you can also see when people are connected to dark energy, right? You can see that running them. And it's an unfortunate thing because we've all known what it's like to be run by that. I've been run by that. Yep. I felt it. Yep. Okay, I'll tell you guys a fucked up story. I don't know if I've told this story a lot before. Okay. I was in Kauai, and my girlfriend at that time packed my camera gear. This is over a decade ago. And I hike into the Nepali coast. Not too happy about this. Not too proud of this. Hike in the Nepali coast, and I get out there, and I find out that she hasn't packed the gear. And it really, really, really pissed me off. Now, this girl carried a lot of trauma of her own in her. And have you ever been in a relationship with someone where they're kind of like just kind of like water and wine mixing, and if they're very traumatized, it just starts getting in you and it starts to change the shape of your character as well? So that by the time that you're done, she's probably a little more positive, you're a little bit more negative. So it was kind of one of those relationships where it was kind of like this beach ball of negativity was being passed back and forth. Your pain body feeds, pass it to them. Their pain body feeds, pass it back and forth. You know, so, you know, that manifests in the form of us just getting in petty arguments a lot after a really good first year and a half or so. So I remember the version of passing the beach ball back to me was not packing the camera gear, which I'd spent, I don't know, $15K or something to like, you know, bring my team into Nepali, and we'd hiked in and we'd, you know, taken the time off for the year to do it, and we'd rented a boat to get in there, and then we hiked part of it. And it was like this whole expedition. And I remember I just felt more and more betrayed.
He's getting to it. It's coming up right here. So for the people getting bored or losing interest, he's about to go Super Saiyan mode right here.
And angry that, like, you know, it's like I'm literally leaving her in like a lavish vacation while I just want to go shoot some videos in the Nepali coast. And like I'm thinking to myself the story of like she's getting a lavish vacation, and her vacation's probably like 20K, and she couldn't even just pack the damn cards. And I get more and more angry. And I got so angry that partway through the hike, I actually hiked off the trail. It's a 11-mile hike on the Kalalau Trail, often rated the most dangerous trail in the U.S. It's not the most dangerous trail in the U.S. I've hiked more dangerous, but it's rated that way. Angel's Landing is another one in Zion, rated that very dangerous. It's not actually more dangerous than that, but it's very dangerous. Doable for me because I know how. But anyway, I'm so pissed that I hike off the trail. And as I was hiking off the trail, I became so angry. I've never felt this in my life. I felt so angry that I started hiking through some of the most dangerous parts of the trail. There's a place called Crawler's Ledge on mile 7. If you're watching this at home, you could look that up. Crawler's Ledge on mile 7 of the Nepali coast, the Kalalau Trail. And it's not the kind of thing that you want to just take lightly. It's safe if you are precautious, but you know, it's about that fucking wide on the side of a cliff. And if you fall off, you just fall in the ocean, you die. So the thing is, you know, I just stormed through that, almost wishing that I would get killed in a weird way. And as I was walking back, I could hear this like growling in my voice. I was like, fucking, oh, fuck. Like that. And I remember I was like, what is this that's animating me? And it's like, I have so much energy right now. I've never had this much fucking energy. And I've got all this fucking energy right now. And so as I'm walking back, I decide I'm gonna let this thing talk. Whatever this thing is writing me, I'm gonna let it talk. That was the weirdest shit I have ever heard in my fucking life. It was a different language. It was like, fuck, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like speaking in tongues, like some satanic shit. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, somehow, some way, I've invited something into myself that is really, really, really fucked. And I've seen this in other people where, you know, I've witnessed people that are under the possession of this, like rolling around in the bed, shrieking, screaming, kicking. I watched as business partners of mine sued the living bejesus out of each other while I begged them to stop, and they're feeding off of it with their pain bodies. They're getting feedings. They're doing what I was doing with the girl, but we're just kind of like, you know, getting annoyed at each other, nothing beyond that. But they're doing that with lawfare, you know, losing, well, probably they lost around 1.5 million each, but they lost me. That was worth a lot more. So, you know, so very self-destructive. Both their lives are far worse off because of it. So the thing is like, you know, I've seen this stuff up close. I've seen this very, very, very up close. I've seen a lot of it up close. And like I said, just looping back on that thing with like the whole, like why know about human betrayal? I know about it because, again, I learned about social dynamics and dating. And so I saw infidelity and hypergamy out in full glory. And like the things that I saw, I don't even tell you guys about because you're just not gonna be able to process it. Then you're gonna start saying, well, you go out in LA. Like, even though I spend time in Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Washington State, Alabama, like who's in Alabama? You know, right? Like, you know, Louisiana, you know, Savannah, Georgia, right? Like I go in these places, but somehow someone who's like probably never been to even any of that is gonna say, well, you're just in LA, but I'm not always in LA, you guys know that. So I see this stuff everywhere that I go. I see guys doing it, I see girls doing it, and they rationalize it, they completely rationalize it, anything around sex. But I've watched men, because I've worked primarily with men, do it around money and do it around leads, right? And they know damn well, like they know damn well that I could be taking like $600-700K a month in personal money, and that instead I pump it back in the business. And they know that I'm doing that to build a culture, and they know they're stealing. They know damn well, but they'll never do it. Now the funny thing is, when those guys leave, the rationale will be, oh, like maybe they didn't treat you right while you were working to help them. Like you're putting it, because everyone's gonna resonate with the quote little guy. Right? They don't see the guy who's sacrificing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to build up something for somebody else. They're not seeing that. They're not seeing it. They're only seeing it through the lens of where they position themselves, which is like the little guy's being exploited. The little guy's being exploited. They're seeing it from that angle, not the angle like okay, well, have you ever even given up $1? Have you ever, you who's complaining, ever given up $1, let alone hundreds of thousands a month to try to build a vision because you want to try to, in your own little weird way, to wake up the world, and you're trying to do that, but they're not going to see it like that. So I was able to see things like that were so scary and so shocking. And the scary part is, this was the scariest part for me when I would see that, was that they believe that they're doing nothing wrong. They believe they're doing nothing wrong. And when you talk to them about it, if you tell them about the other people who did this, they're going to scan you and they're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to go, I just want to let you know that I would never do that. And I mean, I've even seen this with cheating, by the way. Like girls that have cheated on me would spend years going, I would never do that. And you know, I want to show you that things can be different. My problem is I can read when people cheat. I'm the least jealous boyfriend you've ever seen in your life because I know when cheating happens, because I can see when someone cheated in their pupils, because I can read eyes. So I know that's why I'm the least jealous. I look like I'm all secure with myself. It's not that I'm secure with myself. It's that I can read people. So I know when someone's done something, because I can tell when another man's energy is in the eyes. You all can tell it too, you just ignore it. So the thing is that, you see the shifts in behavior, then you can test and poke at them. Then if you just get them mad, they'll cop to it. You pick a fight with them when you see something, pick a fight, and then they'll cop to it to hurt you. So the thing is, with the cheating, the same people who cheat will say, I would never do that. The same people who steal will say, I'll never do that.
It's right here. It's right here. And he's going to explain why these people say these things. And they're technically not lying because they believe it, even though it's not true. And he's about to deconstruct the entire human psychology within the Matrix right here.
I've had people who are like, I just want to let you know, Owen, that nothing in the world is more important than friendship. And you know, the fun that we have here is priceless. I would never do that. I can't believe people would do that. Then they go do it. Why is that? They're not conscious. They're not actually conscious. They're not actually conscious. So when they're saying it, it's just a neural, all that is happening. There's no actual object constancy. There's no actual soul that is being spoken from. It is a neural network in the brain, okay? It's a neural network in the brain that's just activating and making it say something. It'd be like as if somebody was dead and then some neural network activated and just the mouth moved. It's a neural network in the brain. They say this about NPD and BPD, narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, is that the core self died as a kid, and there's just little neural networks that are still firing off, and it makes it look like that's a person. And then because they're missing a core self, they make a hive mind. With NPD, they use all the people that give the narcissistic supply to create identity because they're missing identity. People with borderline get what's called their favorite person, who then they get it from that person, okay? So it's this, so you can study this. Look up Sam Vaknin and what it means when you don't actually have a core identity. There's actually nobody home. You're talking to somebody who is who's on autopilot. They look conscious, but they're actually on autopilot. And so when you see this, you have to understand that we can understand this within a cluster B personality disorder, that somebody could be on autopilot, but we can't understand that you can actually have a death of the soul anyway. You can still lose that core self anyway. That core self can still be snuffed out anyway. So when the person is saying, baby, I would never cheat on you, or hey, the people that stole, I would never do that, the friendship is worth more, and and all that kind of stuff, all that will happen is that when it becomes expedient to do it, they will RAS flip, and if you were to ask them why they did it, their side of the story would be so real, you'd believe them. You'd be like, oh, they're totally right, that's totally fair, it all makes sense. They'd find a way to justify it, and then what would happen is they would believe it because a neural network is simply, if you did 98 good things, 2 bad things, they use amnesia, they wipe out all the good things, they remember only 2 bad things, and if they're resonating lower, we can remember that which we resonate with more. If you're in a good mood, you can remember positive experiences. If you're in a bad mood, you remember bad experiences. So they're now permanently in a bad mood, and as a result of that, they only remember the couple bad experiences, it's fully real to them, and justifies what they did. And this is what all people are doing all the time. It's constant. That's why when you, when you make a deal with somebody, you have to write it down. Any deal that I make with people, I immediately write it down because I've learned from running a business, you have countless little running deals with people that whatever you don't write down, they rationalize. They will rationalize. They find some other lane in order to sort of justify what they think. They rationalize it and they will go and do that. Now, you're all hearing this and I know what you're all thinking. Those bad people, I have to protect myself. You're not acknowledging that unless this has been a major area of focus for you, that you yourself are on autopilot. You're on autopilot. Do you understand? And then while you're on autopilot, they can program you. You are very, very easily programmable, okay? So for example, if you look at, say, the leftist meme, if you poke on the leftist meme, if you know the kind of things that I know where you kind of just know how to poke at someone's neural networks by talking to them, you can actually get people to reveal the programming. So for some people that have that meme in them, okay, the woke meme, the woke mind virus, as Elon Musk calls it, if you go say certain things, like I can pick a woke person and without even saying anything that's hateful, but just saying certain trigger words that I know will unleash the programming, you can get them to have the same satanic outburst as the kind of sick shit that I'm talking about here. So what'll happen is if you poke at it, you'll see them go, huh?
I mean, again, this guy's like Andrew Tate with the comedy. I mean, the voices and impersonations, but he's revealing a major truth of Matrix programming. Like, there's nobody home. He just explained all of the brainless masses, the coincidence theorists, the NPCs. He's explaining the exact psychological mechanisms by which the Matrix programming was achieved. I mean, we're just in the middle of it here. But, again, here come the receipts. Modern day Socrates here.
I hate you. I want to kill you. I want to kill you. And you're like, holy shit, right? You're like, they're in pain right now. And then they'll get amnesia to it after. And that's under the mind virus. I'm serious. Because you guys know me. You know I do social experiments. You know how I get, right? You know, I get a little silly. I'm a little silly. I'm a little silly guy, you know, right? You know, you guys remember how I get. So I'm like, I can poke at this, and you'll just like that. That's in there. Do you ever see the movie Kingsman? Yeah. Where they can press the button, everyone starts killing each other. Yeah. The programming's in there. It's all in there. It's all in there. It's all in there, guys. That's what's happened in the country. You don't need to go to war. What, like storm the beaches? Why do that? You can just program people. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Totally unnecessary, right? Why have all these armed guards when you could just call yourself Cooper? Then you could just tell people what to think. My name is Cooper, right? So you could. My name is like, why don't you just like, how much more generic can you have? My name is John Smith, right? Like, I'm John Smith, here to educate you on the state of the world and what to think, and the woke mind virus. And they can put that in there. So it's, it's wild. We've seen it unleashed. You guys already saw it unleashed. You saw it. Okay? So it's already happened. You've seen it. Like as crazy as it sounds, is any of this even crazy is what's happening? Like, this is all fucking crazy? This is less crazy than the news. Like, this is at least tying the news together under some kind of theory of mind of what caused it, right? The fucked up things that you saw in 2020 are so fucked that your mind erases them. It doesn't feel real. You're like, did that really happen? I don't know. And we just forget about it. We don't even pursue what happened. We're not even curious. We're not even curious. That's when you know they have you, that they can do that and that you'll forget about it. That's when they have you. Let me tell you another thing, just a little selfish information for you. If you're not rich now, you couldn't get rich in an environment of people that are brainwashed to be consumers while the internet exists, spying on everyone to find out their niche wants and needs, and you still couldn't make any money. The population has been brainwashed to be consumers, and you couldn't figure out how to sell anything to a brainwashed consumer. This isn't like the 1800s where you have to build a brick and mortar factory. You have invasive and unethical AI spying on everybody to find out niche stuff while they're being brainwashed to be mindless consumer zombies, and you couldn't figure out. That's like a guy that couldn't get laid after feminism. You're empowered. You fucked him, and you still couldn't get laid. And you still couldn't do it. I remember when I was younger, I went to San Fran, I just cleaned up. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is crazy. 2 in a night, 3 in a night, it was crazy. And I was like, what's going on up here? This is too much. They'd be like, I'm empowered. I'm taking you. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So you're right. So the thing is, like, I'm trying to show you guys, like, I see things a little bit differently than how a typical person sees it. But I just think I'm looking at the code of the matrix, I guess you could say. Like, I'm looking at it at the code, right? I'm not just looking at the surface, right? A simple example I've given before would be, people are like, 5-hour energy, right? Like, if, like, whatever supplement exists, like, if I go to the supplement section of, like, Whole Food or Erewhon or Amazon, but I don't want to pay them taxes. Well, no, I guess I have that now. But anyway, if I look at a supplement that says, energy potion or whatever, I'm looking at that, and I know what every single one of those supplements is, okay? Like, so it's like, well, it has this supplement, that supplement. I know what it has, but in addition, I'm looking not only at the ratios of what's in it, I'm looking at where it's sourced from, okay? So for example, like, if you get ginseng, a CVS or Walgreens ginseng is different from a 100-year-old ginseng. A bottle of 100-year-old ginseng. Mm-hmm. If there's like even like some dude I want to meet, I'm gonna go find that guy. I'm gonna befriend him. So I know that that's what I'm getting. As food. Now you can see people that are in that pre-programming. You guys ever remember the Tyler Destroys a White Knight video? So yeah. So again, when you smoke weed, what are you really doing? You're opening yourself up to that. Okay. When you're eating processed foods, you're opening yourself up to that. When you're looking at stupid ass media, you're opening yourself up to that. When you have a relationship with God, in my view, you're opening yourself up to that, okay? So people don't understand, like, there's higher level consequences to a lot of this stuff than you realize. I've watched many, many people that I knew die before their body died. People who I knew, their bodies are still running around, their mouths are still moving, okay? Their mouths still move. They would appear that they're still there, but if you know what real consciousness looks like, they're not there. There's nobody home. As Sam Vaknin would say, it is the howling void of an empty apartment building, the wind blowing through it. That's what you're seeing, okay? So that same phenomenon that you see in NPD or BPD, where there's a missing self, that self has been snuffed out. Many people would say that it is the soul being eaten by the devil, being eaten as food. Now, you can see people that are in that pre-programming. You guys ever remember the Tyler Destroys a White Knight video?
Yeah.
That was the guy under the pre-programming. That's what that was. There's other ways that you can see the pre-programming as well, okay? You can recognize when someone is just spitting back pre-programmed responses. By the way, the human mind, I've said this before, but we're saying again here, I think. The human mind, if you don't have a relationship to God, or at least hella confidence, you're not able to screen for accuracy. You're screening for what will create less likelihood to get killed if you say it and believe it in a tribe. I'm letting you guys sit with that one. Okay, so they're not looking at accuracy. They're looking at what, if they believe and say, will gain them acceptance within a tribe. That's what a lot of pop culture is. Like, oh, you know, Drake's the big pop star. Do you love Drake? I love Drake. You know, right? It's like, it's that kind of a thing. That's why, you know, just because someone got really successful doesn't mean they're the most talented. That is also why becoming successful within the system itself is not a sign of real success. All that it means is that you got the brainwashed drone population to buy your shit.
I mean, he's dropping some bombs right here, too, on just general ideas about success and what it all means within the Matrix system. Again, is this not a guy? I mean, this is modern day Socrates right here in these moments. I'm not talking about other moments and other talks.
It is a pimp-hoe relationship from the elites to the masses. In other words, the pimp is just as possessed by the darkness as the hoe. He may be the exploiter at exploiting the hoe, but he's actually equally exploited by Satan. He's equally exploited. So it doesn't actually, so they're both exploited. They're in this pimp-hoe dynamic, but they're both equally miserable in different ways. One is victim, one is victimizer, but both are under this horrible, horrible energy. So it's the same thing with, somebody goes and makes a McDonald's and poisons the population, and they're viewed as a success. You know, maybe they get to go to Cannes Film Festival or something. They're not actually successful, and I'll tell you why. Because the act of doing that is going to snuff out their soul. So that person that you see is firing neural networks, but there's nobody home. Look, they're human beings. They should never be hurt. No living human should ever be hurt or viewed as an animal or soulless or whatever. They should be viewed in a way where they have potential and value and be treated respectfully as all humans should be. I don't care what race, what gender, what sexuality. Everybody should be treated with respect. Everybody. A prisoner in jail should be treated with respect. All human beings and all human life deserves respect. What I'm saying, though, is that what you may be seeing is that the state of consciousness that they're currently inhabiting is one where neural networks are firing off. So you're talking to them, you're talking to a bunch of neural networks that are firing off. There's not a core self with core sets of values that's not going to RAS flip. Okay, the main thing that you can tell by if someone's conscious or not is their propensity for RAS flips is a major, major, major way to tell. So if they're able to steal from you, and then they steal, and then they go, no, but I did it for this. Here's why I did it. I did it for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. That's
what he's saying about RAS flips, he's talking about your reticular activating system and familiarity with what's around you. I mean, I don't know who used this example. A friend of mine actually used this example. When you buy a type of car that you've never had before, like let's just say you get hardcore into, I don't know, trying to remember what vehicle he was talking about. Let's say you never gave a second thought to like, I don't know, Mini Coopers or something. So you kind of know what it is. You saw one here and there. Then if you buy one yourself and you're driving around, you'll notice a lot more. Same thing with like Corvette or like any specific type of car, if you never gave a crap about them before. Now, if you were familiar with them, but a certain type of vehicle, pickup truck, moving van, whatever. Moving van's pretty good because people that aren't working with vans, a lot of times they're not really noticing. I mean, obviously they know what a moving van looks like, but if they buy one themselves, they'll start noticing them everywhere, even though they were always everywhere. So that was a reticular activating system experiment or example of what would happen in that situation. So it's something that's all around you, but you don't realize it. So he's talking about RAS flips, where it's based on what you are aware in your consciousness, even though other things are obviously true.
That's why I did it. And that reason is a self-rationalization. That means that the neural networks are firing off. The biology is going, oh, survival reproduction advantage from doing this. Therefore, do it. Rearrange reality, what happened. That means they're not even conscious. If they died, what would go to heaven? The RAS flipping ego? Like, I am the RAS flipping ego. I'm going to heaven. But you're going to a non-material realm. So if all that's there is something that's operating within the material realm, there's no connection anywhere higher. So the soul gets sucked straight into hell. So what does it actually matter what happened? Like, what does it matter that they own McDonald's and went to con? Do you know how fast that shit's over? I'm 44. Do you understand how quick this shit goes by? It goes by in 2 seconds. But the thing is, the proper interpretation of the Gospels, in my opinion, is not to just let the world go to shit. I think it is very much the opposite of that. And so people literally just sit back, waiting for the apocalypse to come and rationalizing that they should just let it come and just be super duper passive and meek. And even the word meek is misinterpreted by most Christians. So, they're interpreting that as, just be this quiet little dipshit. And really meek is more related with things like this very, very dense ego structure that you have to let go of so you can have a birth of the soul. But they're not seeing it that way. And there's other interpretations too, but they're not seeing it in that regard, okay? The great challenge is confusion, right? So lack of discernment. We have confusion. So we don't actually understand who we are. We don't understand where we're from. We don't understand what this place is, and we do not understand who we are beyond. So we're basically under confusion, okay? So we have all these different frames being thrown at us. Now, do you guys remember the speech that I gave the other day about I was making a really funny comedy bit on Wes Watson and Sadhguru? Do you guys remember that? Yeah. And so I was talking about things like basically talking about how, with the right presentation, it kind of pulls people in and stuff like that. That's basically like frame control, right? So I'm really, really good at controlling frames. So I understand that as a teacher, as a guru, I understand how to control frames. So in effect, what's happening when you're talking about controlling frames is you're being frame controlled. Okay, so you're being told that the way the system is the correct frame. So one thing that I joke about a lot, okay, by the way, I know this is getting late for you guys. This is so this is our third day of the event. We're heading into 4 a.m. So there was, over 100 people here before, and now we're at about 15 of you left. So we're kind of just going to wrap in a sec. But what I would tell you is the joke that I always say. Now, again, I say this as a joke to get you thinking. Okay, it's all to get you thinking. Is I say that I am trolling 100% of the time. Okay, I'm trolling 100% of the time. Can anyone here guess what I'm referring to when I say I am trolling 100% of the time? Can any of you guys guess?
You're making a joke at what is the normal establishment of what we have and what we think compared to what we actually are seeing.
Mm-hmm.
You are seeing.
Yep, that's a decent interpretation. Anyone else want to guess?
You're just doing it for the dance.
For the joy of the dance. So in other words, here's what it means, okay? The infinite means that you're doing something specifically for the joy of the dance. It's when you realize there's nothing else but the joy of the dance. So you have to understand, like, I look like I know what I'm talking about if I sound like I'm certain. But I'm just making up a frame and asserting it in a certain way, in a high certainty way. So when I say to myself, okay, it's cool to go out 4 days a week and work on social skills, that's just me inventing a frame and saying that it's cool. When I decide to go do a public speech in front of an audience, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna do this thing called a free tour. And the free tour, I'm gonna invite a bunch of people, and then I'm gonna go all crazy in front of the audience, and then I'm gonna do free stuff and public speaking, all that. That's just me making a game. I invented that game. It's like a sport I invented. You see that? It's like I invented. It's like James Naismith inventing basketball. I'm just inventing a sport out of nothing. You see this? Video blogs, infield footage, all this. It's just me inventing something out of nothing. Something fun to do out of nothing. What's that? It's a way to entertain myself for the joy of the dance.
And give to others.
And to give to others. So, but what I'm saying is that it's a game that I'm inventing for the joy of the dance. So now when you learn it from me, you're looking for the official way from me. What's the official line, the official amount to go out, the official thing to say, the official voice projection, the official best herb, the official whatever, right? And then you look for that from society. It's like, well, what's the official way that you would, like work at a job, you'd work a 9 to 5, you'd get retired, right? So if you look at, say, like, the 1950s when people kind of did the same thing, there's a movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of that was shot actually up in here, I think. And it was with Quentin Tarantino. It shows how, like, everyone's kind of just listening to the same radio station. Like, there's a lot of uniformity. Now we have all this niche stuff with the internet. Pros and cons of that, of course. I like the niche better, but it does create a lot of division. So the thing is lack of unity, too. But I don't think that means that we should have some establishment picking what we have to have unity. That's crazy. I remember Barack Obama once, he's like, the problem here is like we're having two different conversations. We got to get back to the same conversation, right? And like part of that, you're like, because I think we're all so sick of arguing, like part of you wants to be like, yeah, that'd be great. But it's like, the point he's trying to make is like, people are arguing from two different RASs, like two different sets of RASs, reticular activation system. They're arguing from two different points of selective focus. So it's like they're just yelling at each other, but they're in a completely different conversation. So that is the accuracy and the wisdom of what Obama was saying. But the problem is, it's like, well, who gets to decide the fucking conversation, bro? You and your sensors? That's really what he's saying. That's actually what he's saying, if you want to know, by the way. So it sounds good on the surface. You're like, yeah, I'm so sick of all these conversations, right? And he's like, well, I'll tell you, here's the conversation we're going to have. And then I'm Obama. Just let daddy pick the conversation, right? Thank you, daddy. So that's really what he's saying. So it's like, it sounds good in theory, but, it's problematic. So even though that guy just makes anything sound good, like, he's just like, we're all going to do this. You're like, yes, Barack. He's so charismatic. And so calm looking, too. But anyway, so when I say I'm just trolling, what I'm saying is, like, for example, when I took 4 years off, I'm just like, we're going to go to every national park, every ski resort.
Is everybody still here? This is kind of crazy because it's like he's weaving in and out of like regular conversation to all these massive truth bomb deconstructions of the Matrix and human psychology. I mean, even Andrew Tate didn't quite go to this level psychologically. I mean, it's actually kind of weird to watch and listen because it's like he's weaving in and out of like, oh, this is a self-help pickup artist type seminar, but at the same time, he's talking about how the state brainwashes you. I mean, the entire Matrix system. It's kind of crazy, but again, it's almost like a modern day Socrates.
And then I would just be out in like Oregon or something like that. And I'd be like, let's now go to Montana. Then after I'm done in Montana, I'm like, let's now go to Wyoming. After I'm done in Wyoming, it's like, let's now go to Redwood Forest, right? And then I just get there, and then I just pick place I want to go hiking, and I just hike in, and I just hike and hike and hike and hike, and I don't even know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. I look like I do. I don't. It's very natural. It's actually a very natural state. That's really living. Waking up and just, let's explore. Yeah. Let me tell you something funny. Most of the people that I was there with couldn't handle it. They wanted their Matrix trinkets back. The people that came on that trip with me that I invited and paid, none of them paid for it. I paid for all of it. Couldn't handle it because they weren't, building towards the dog and the picket fence in the house. Like, they weren't in their hamster maze. They couldn't handle. Okay, so in Zen, what is the expression in Zen? I think they say it's like no roof under head, no ground underfoot. You guys ever heard that? No. Is that what it is? No roof overhead, no ground underfoot, something like that, right? When we went out and we just traveled for years like that, there's no roof overhead, there's no ground underfoot. We're just exploring. Just drive. That's the American dream in many ways, right? The open road. Yeah. It's just the open road, guys. Let's just fucking drive. When I do the free tour, what you witnessed here this weekend was the open road. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I didn't know what I was going to talk about when I sat down here. I'm in the open road with you guys. We're just making the open road. I make a seminar. This is the official seminar. Then we'll cut it, we'll render it, we'll post it, we'll give it a name, we'll give it a thumbnail. And it becomes the official whatever the fuck. You just make it up.
All right, I'm going to end it here. It goes on for a while longer. I don't know if there was any more relevant parts. I don't remember. But it's all quite interesting. Who thinks if ancient Greece was as presented by the powers that be in the mainstream, I mean, is this not like hanging out with Socrates in the public square? And he's just musing and dropping truth bombs of wisdom. Doesn't this kind of have that vibe of you're just hanging out in the public square and this guy's talking, but he's dropping so many truth bombs about matrix programming, etc. So I hope everybody thought that this podcast lived up to the title. I think it did. I think it did. I think these guys both dropped so many truth bombs in a single video. It's unlike anything I have ever seen or heard before. People in the comments, feel free to drop any other interview or talk or any single video where someone has dropped more truth bombs about deconstructing the Matrix and Matrix programming than these two individuals did here. I mean, in my opinion, these are the equivalent of modern-day Socrates. Hope everybody found it interesting, informative, and entertaining as well. If you want to support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it's quickly going extinct, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire, signing off. Catch you guys next time.